What is going on, everybody? It is episode 401 of Pop Culture Crisis. My name is Brett, and I am here with my co-host. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Hello, Crisis Actors. It's Mary. Yesterday was insane, obviously. It was like a 5-hour-long stream. Episode 400 went better than we had any right to expect, but the fun is not over yet because we have a special guest in studio. Hello, Lauren
Hi.
Chen.
Thank you guys so much
AKA
for having
roaming
me.
millennial.
Oh yeah, those are going back to the way good old days. Yeah.
Which I am. I subscribed to you in high school.
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh, that's so cool to hear because I feel like so much has changed in the world and on YouTube
and in
since
the
then.
internet,
yeah,
like, as a whole.
Two lifetimes ago is what that feels like.
When we were making Jessica, who helps us with the art for the graphics and everything, we were discussing how we were going to set the photo up. It has your initials, and then there's the X, and then it has the show's initials on there. And I initially had her put RM on there. I was like, I don't know if that's like it just seems like
cut.
Yeah, that's a nod to the OGs.
Yeah. I was like, maybe we should fade it in the background. Like, just leave the
Why did you
LC.
retire it?
So it was kind of at a weird point in my, I guess, career, but I started doing some in-person events. And then, when you're in person, people just feel more comfortable calling you an actual name, which is fair.
Hi, roaming.
Yeah. And I was also doing some things with like older crowds who weren't as online, like activist groups like Freedom Works. And then it's kind of like when you're with older people who are like in their 50s and they're like, wait, what, roaming what? So that was kind of strange. And I had initially started doing just slideshows without my face, and then I kind of started using my face, and then it almost seemed just like a natural progression to start just using my name because people were seeing actual me on screen. But
I remember watching your videos before you did a face reveal of any kind. And when you did the face reveal, I was like, what were you waiting for?
Oh, that's so sweet. But I remember one of the things that was holding me back from using my actual name is that like Lauren Southern. I didn't want to be the other Lauren, and my name really is Lauren.
Well, now there are so many Laurens, it's kind of like irrelevant now. Like, but she was kind of
was like the Lauren in the
primary
political sphere.
Lauren in that sphere at the time.
So I added that as well. And what I was thinking about when I saw it was like I watched a lot of those videos back then, and I was like, do you use you'd eventually have to do professional events, right?
Yeah.
And they have to have like a name attached to
exactly.
it. There's nothing that you really can do because you can't be.
You could
forever.
choose a fake name, but who wants to do that?
And I feel like that's at that point too many names. Like you have like your roaming millennial, and then I'm actually Lauren, and then if I had like another name on top of that, like that is just a tangled web of identities. So and I feel like that has fallen out of favor on the internet. More and more people, even people who are just entering the scene, they're just using their regular names.
It's I think there's some people attribute a certain level of legitimacy to being willing to, especially if you're going to talk about topics that make it inherently controversial. People are going to be like, well, I can take your word for it, but there's more weight behind it if you're willing to actually throw who you are into, behind what you're saying, right?
I agree, but I also don't like the retort that's like, oh, you can't say what you think with your real face and name, because like people have real jobs that they're trying to protect, and
or
their
families
families that they're trying to protect from crazies on the internet. So I think anonymity is really important, that we like don't denigrate that as a whole.
No, you're right. And it's also this weird thing where I think the online sphere is starting to become more legitimate in a way. I don't know if you guys saw, but a while ago, Adam Kinzinger was like getting into an online Twitter fight with the account Cat Turd. And Cat Turd was ratioing him, and it's like, dude, examine your life. You are being ratioed by an account called Cat Turd. Like they are owning you.
Amazing, though. I love.
Yeah,
I
love the account too. But just like as a congressman at that point, which he was, it's like this is not going well for you.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about a bunch of stuff today. We're gonna talk about the fact that the media, being who the media is attempting to denigrate all that is Sound of Freedom, which is doing fantastic at the box office right now. They are calling a movie that calls out human trafficking a far-right QAnon conspiracy theory because the media is full of evil douchebags. So we're going to talk about that. Specifically articles from Jezebel, The Guardian, and a few others. They're awful, but we'll get into it. We're also going to talk about the fact that Pearl Davis decided to get in. There it is. It was lagging before. Now there you go. That's a little bit scary.
Yeah.
You get used to it eventually. You'll get used to it. Crisis Party, however, will probably scare her just a little bit. Am I right? Yes. So we're going to talk about that. Pearl Davis got into a spate with a feminist on the Piers Morgan show. Mary found these clips utterly hilarious. We're going to watch some of them. We will debate whether, is Pearl Davis right about this? She seems to make everyone angry somehow. She doesn't seem to lean one way or the other. I mean, she has views that lean one way, but she has a way of pissing off just about everyone. So we're going to talk about her. We're going to talk about the fact that Crystal Hefner is saying that she is going to reveal all of the sordid secrets of the Playboy Mansion after, Hugh Hefner died a couple years back, which is funny because I've been rewatching a show called Las Vegas, which is this great time capsule to a very, very different time in America. Between 2004 and 2008, when a lot of even mainstream network television advertised a lot of debaucherous content in a way that felt simultaneously degenerate and somewhat wholesome at the same time. I really can't explain it. It was just done in a way that felt like they're advertising this stuff to old people because it was absolutely a show for older people. But Hugh Hefner has a cameo in there, and it's just like he's played as very much like this lovable old guy who represents, the kind of culture that was prominent in Vegas at that time, a culture that hasn't actually changed. It's just that the media that portrays it has. So we'll get into that. We'll talk about a bunch of other stuff. So if you guys are ready, we will get right into it. Mary, are you ready?
Let's go.
Lauren, are you ready?
I'm not only ready, but I'm hyped.
Let's do
go.
this. All right, guys. So first things first, we are going to address the Britney Spears getting smacked incident. Yes. Okay. So Britney Spears got slapped.
She got bitch slapped.
She did. She got slapped yesterday while trying to get a photo of the #1 prospect in all of the NBA this year. Let's watch this video from Broadcast Boys while they show you, they break it down. These guys are great. Like, I would love to be able to get these guys on the podcast. I guess the show is like run by Warner Brothers, so I don't know if they'd be willing to come on here, but these guys are two of my favorite people in media right now, so listen to them.
They're gonna see our Flash review and be like, decline.
Exactly. Let's listen to these guys break it down, and it's really funny. So here we go. I'm gonna refresh just to make sure it's good. Here we go, and breaking news.
Britney Spears smacked in face by San Antonio Spurs security after she wanted to pick with Victor Wembanyama.
They protected the asset at all costs.
The one who slapped Britney Spears is Damian Smith, director of team security for the Spurs. Backhanded her in the face.
A disrespectful slap at that.
She went over to ask him if they could take a photo together. She tapped him on his back, and we're told the director of team security for the Spurs instantly backhanded her, causing her to fall to the ground, knocking her glasses off.
What the fuck? Dude clearly wilded to get backhand slapped by a dude named Dame Smith when she's just trying to get a pic. Dude clearly overreacted.
Britney composed herself and went to her table. We're told the security guy came over to the table and apologized. He said, "You know how it is when you're being swarmed by fans."
You know
how it is. Sometimes you just gotta smack a bitch. For her to go through something like this, Damian Smith, how dare you put your hands on such a fucking iconic woman? But I think that if she politely tapped him on the shoulder, she doesn't deserve a backhand for that. Britney Spears deserves her flowers. She deserves her respect. Promising a prospect as he is new to this. So Damian Smith, what the fuck's the matter with you?
But yes, spot on. And apparently that guy was not charged. Like, they talked about whether this guy would be charged for what happened.
We got a $20
Yes.
one from Paul Gerard Maximilian. He said, "Great to see you guys live. It's been a whole..." Wait, what? Love to Brett and Mary. I've been subscribed to Lauren back when she was just a voiceover and used emojis. Can't wait to hear what y'all's great minds discuss.
Yes.
It's not going to be anything highbrow, that's for sure.
Yes, we're going to talk about that later, because, like, as far as I'm concerned, politics is boring now. Like, most of the time, it's just depressing and boring now. This stuff is so much more fun. Like, I want to talk about stuff that's fun, like Britney Spears. So she had this thing where apparently she taps this guy on the shoulder, and after all this happened, she goes like, she's like, I thought this was America. Like,
I love her glasses flying into the air too. Sam Asghari has posted a couple of paragraphs defending his wifey on Instagram. He said, "I can't imagine a scenario where an unarmed female fan showing any kind of excitement or appreciation for a celebrity would cause her to be physically assaulted, much less being hit in the face for tapping someone on the shoulder."
Yeah, I think that's a good point to make, because like, this isn't crazy and wrong just because it's Britney Spears. If it were some random woman, it would still be not okay.
Well, I mean, what they're talking about here now is, like, remember, somebody mentioned she got the Will Smith treatment. No, somebody prevented the possible Will Smith treatment because all these award shows are going on. First of all, there's musicians left and right getting stuff thrown at them. People are just walking on stage and slugging people. The security guards have needed to step up, but maybe they need to find a middle ground somewhere between smacking Britney Spears and letting somebody potentially attack their charge.
The security guard must have recognized her, right?
I mean, maybe
Britney
not.
Spears. She has had
She was wearing
meltdowns
sunglasses
in the
right?
past.
Yeah.
Not even in like the far past, like 2007 breakdown era, but recently, like that video of her in the restaurant where
Yeah.
she's like yelling at people,
That's,
yelling at
and Sam
servers.
Asghari. She was
Where
yelling
Sam
at him in the
Asghari is
restaurant.
there, so he knows that she has like some erratic behavior in public.
I'm telling you right now, at least she didn't give him the like, don't you know who I am?
Yeah.
That would have been worse if she did hit him with the don't you know who I am, because that's always more.
That doesn't get you points on the internet, or
No, she was like,
as it
"This is
shouldn't.
America,
you
and I'm
think
free to
this-
tap someone on the shoulder."
Yeah, you'd think that like that saying too would be something to be gone by now, given how much it's made fun of.
Yeah.
Like, and everyone has a little bit of derision for a person who actually says, "Do you know who I am?" Like nobody actually wants to be that person. That's you'd think that wouldn't be okay with that. But Britney Spears didn't do that. To her credit,
Brittany
to her
doesn't
credit.
even know who she is.
Yeah.
So
She went the
I think
Randy
we're
Marsh.
good there.
This is America. I thought this was America.
That's exactly.
Way more
Excuse me.
respectable.
So, also, guys, before we get started, I do want to remind you, would you please hit the like button on this video and subscribe to this channel if you have not done so already. Thank you very much for that. And remember, just as Paul did earlier, all Super Chats $20 and over, we will interrupt the discussion. We will read them right then and there, and then we will do our level best to get right back on the discussion point. It's always a brain teaser for me to then try to remember what the hell I was just talking about. So we will get into it. All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about Barbie. Because me and you were talking last night for a few minutes, like Barbenheimer's a thing. Everyone's going to be going and seeing these movies. But right now, the Philippines is threatening to boycott and censor the movie Barbie over some what they call Chinese communist propaganda in the film due to a hand-drawn map
The
in the
Philippines
movie.
or Vietnam?
I think it's Vietnam.
It says, but Vietnam has already banned it.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
no,
so-
Philippines is considering
Yes,
banning
exactly.
it as well.
So, yeah, it says the country's censorship board is currently debating whether to block the local release of the film because a brief scene shows the so-called 9-dash line on a map of Asia, China's controversial territorial claim of the South China Sea. There was a great meme that came out where it shows this next to Oppenheimer. It says, like, one of these
Yeah, I
is
saw
destroying
that.
international relations between countries, and the other one is Oppenheimer. It's fantastic. Like, it's weird, too, because this is not totally off topic, but it doesn't feel like I'm actually seeing a whole ton of Oppenheimer promo.
No.
Like, I've seen it, like, somebody pointed out, they're just releasing a picture of Cillian Murphy looking haggard once a week, and that's the promo for this movie.
I think they know that, look, we have Christopher Nolan, we have Cillian Murphy. You guys are going to come see it. Like, you will give us your money and it's just going to happen, so we don't need to spend the marketing money.
This is a bit of a test for him because, look, Tenet didn't do well, but that was COVID. He wanted to be that first big movie back. And remember, this is a bit of a cat fight because Barbie is being released through Warner Brothers, which is his old studio. He used to release all his work through Warner Brothers Pictures. So we'll see where it goes. But what do you think about that? Like, is Ted Cruz like was talking about this and like
He also said this is Chinese
it's
propaganda.
like, what timeline are we living where I have to hear Ted Cruz's takes on Barbie? Like, I don't like the beard helps you, bro, but it doesn't mean you should talk about Barbie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be critical of this, I think it's pretty safe to say that this probably wasn't an accident. I mean, access to the Chinese market is a really big deal for Hollywood movies. It's really hard to bring in the same amount of money if you're losing access to like 1 billion people. So this probably was calculated by the studio. And I know it's easy to say like, oh, it's a Barbie map, who cares? And I don't think it's worth banning. Don't get me wrong. But I think we would be kidding ourselves if this wasn't illustrative of how Hollywood does kowtow to the Chinese government.
And how
Well,
good
Warner
they are.
Brothers is still claiming it was a mistake or it just wasn't calculated. They said the map in Barbie Land is a childlike crayon drawing. The doodles depict Barbie's make-believe journey from Barbie Land to the real world. It was not intended to make any type of statement.
The best type of propaganda is something you can hide that way, right?
Yeah.
Like something had to go there. So it's not. This is
No
not
one
something.
is looking that closely at it anyway,
No,
except for
here's the thing.
censorship boards.
This is this.
Maybe
is,
they did it because they knew the Chinese censors would
Yes.
be looking that
They-
closely,
they
and they
looked that
didn't
closely.
want to.
Well, they didn't catch it when there was an Epoch Times
Yes,
cameo in Doctor Strange.
I forgot about that. They totally. Yeah, but it didn't get a release there.
It didn't.
it
Was
didn't-
it because of Epoch
Yeah,
Times?
like
or was
because
it
they were
because of
upset about the Epoch Times
gay-
having the.
I thought it was because of the gay parents.
Both. I mean, it's both. It's China, so
Yeah.
it's both of them in that respect. What's funny too is because they did the same thing when they changed the character of the Ancient One in the first Doctor Strange and had Tilda Swinton play it because they didn't want us. Thank you. They had to make changes, right? So we'll see where this goes, but don't let anybody in Hollywood tell you that it just magically ended up there. Every shot in a Hollywood production is meticulously storyboarded and stuff like that, which is like that is oftentimes the most effort is put into, because back in the day, you could do things where like you had show a guy reading a newspaper or a headline, and they didn't have to care what was written on the newspaper because low grade VCRs, you could pause it, but you couldn't really see it. In the age of high definition cameras and television and movies, they had to start hiring even more people in those second units to actually write articles that match what's going on in the movie. Nothing ends up there by accident. So don't listen to Warner Brothers here. Whether it was meant as an affront to Vietnam or to the Philippines is to be left open to your debate, but it definitely was not an accident, not in any way, shape, or form.
I think Barbie is definitely going to do better than Oppenheimer in the box office.
It's a PG-13 and Oppenheimer is an R, so they're already starting from behind the curtain. There will be more like IMAX screens playing Oppenheimer, so they may make up some of the money with the release of those being on, more expensive screens to actually physically go and see. But that's also running headlong into Mission Impossible 7. Like, there is a ton of stuff coming out this year. Like, it's a crazy time to be in the theaters. So are you excited for Barbie?
I am excited for Barbie. Not that I think it's going to be good. Initially I was just unironically, wholesomely excited, but then you had the quote from Kate McKinnon come out about how it's about gender roles holding people back from their humanity or whatever it was. And then there's also been reports that the marketing campaign was actively trying to hide the fact that it is feminist to trick people into going to see it, but the stars involved weren't on board with that.
That's what they should be doing. They should be trying to trick people. That's their job as the marketing
So they
department.
know it's repulsive to
but it's
all
like
audiences.
That's the, I guess, the conspiracy theory that they by now the studios know get woke, go broke, but it's too late to do any reshoots or anything like that. So the best foot forward is just to hide it in marketing, make it seem normal. But the actors and stuff are kind of blowing their cover. So I'm excited to see it, because if it is bad, well, that's an even more fun video to make than if it's good.
Exactly. There's a $20 super chat there from Quite Blackpilled.
He said, Mary, can you look at the camera and say you're crossing over? Why?
Wait, that's not
Oh, sorry, that one was from Jeremy the Haunted Mind.
I don't even have that one.
Should I do it? I don't know what it means. Quite Blackpilled said, typically frostbacks aren't welcome here, but we'll obviously make an exception for the beautiful Lauren Chen.
Thank you.
Mary, anything you can tell us about what your dad, Matt Walsh, is up to? Anyway, awesome guess.
Yes,
I'm one of Matt Walsh's hundreds of children.
I have a I'm a Minnesotan. I was born in Minnesota, so we're honorary Canadians.
Yeah,
and
Minnesota.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I came up. The term is frostback, which is a slur for Canadians, but we would never call you that.
Right.
We would never call her.
Doesn't
that.
Matt Walsh make jokes like I have 6.5 kids or something?
Sounds like something you would say. Which,
I'm the half one then.
It works with his dry sense of humor too. Did you ever see that video?
I don't know what he's up to though.
Of them where they talk about how they don't know how to use washers and dryers. And there was liberal media was really pissed about it. Where like Daily Wire, Matt Knowles, Matt Walsh were talking about I don't know how to use a washer or dryer. Like the idea is their wives do the clothes.
But they were single at one point.
That's what I'm like. It's more impressive if you hand wash. If you hung your stuff on the line. That's a bigger commitment
to the domestic life.
Takes way more work. I have to hang dry all my shirts because I don't like shirts shrinking. So I have to hang dry.
Honestly,
all my
I
shirts.
use washers and dryers, but I don't know how they work either.
Yeah, my husband.
I don't know what all the buttons mean.
He scolded me because I was just living my best life, colors, whatever, Tide Pods, whatever number. But apparently, you're supposed to put the Tide Pod in first and then the clothes.
I've been doing that wrong.
And then he showed me the instructions, and he's right. Actually, you're supposed to put the Tide Pods in first and then the clothes.
I'm gonna be implementing some changes.
I'm gonna have to try that now.
Exactly. My mind
that.
was blown. I was like, what?
I don't know. My clothes are clean.
Yeah.
Also, I still do whites only, and they're like, you don't have to do that anymore.
I don't do
whites
that.
only, huh?
Yeah, exactly. That's what they were saying. I wash the shirts separate for the white undershirt separate because I wear white shirts skating, so they end up getting dirtier. So I have to double up the cleaning, and I don't wash colors and stuff together. But people are like, you don't have to do that anymore. I'm like, well, I'm not taking the time to learn all this. I'm just it's been working for a long time. I'm sticking with it. Okay. So guys, just again, Barbie, don't believe for a second that was just that it magically just tripped and fell into the movie. That's not how this works. That's not a real thing. Let's talk about Elon Musk / parody account, because right now Elon Musk, the actual person, is looking to sue Meta because of what is going on with Threads. Lauren, did you create a Threads?
So no, and there's several reasons. Number one, I don't need another account. I'm on Twitter, Truth Social, Getter. It's just getting out of hand.
you're
I
on
forgot
Truth
about
Social.
Getter.
Yeah, I think I'm on Truth Social. I at least attempted to make an account.
So you're a truther.
Yes.
Getter, Gab, Parler.
No, Parler shut down.
Parler shut down for good?
I'm pretty sure
Okay,
they
I
shut
wasn't
down.
aware of that.
Yeah,
I guess
and
it's good that my Parleys are no longer publicly available.
Is that the name for it? Is that what they call that? I have no idea.
Parlays?
parlays, yeah, because
Okay.
apparently I was talking to someone who worked there, and there was like they were saying that it is parlay for French, but then a bunch of Americans were
Okay.
saying it parlor, so then they just embraced it. But then for a while they're like, okay, the site is parlor, but the tweets are parlays, and it's like, guys, this was never going to work.
Okay.
Well, I guess Twitter is Twitter and tweets are tweets,
Yeah.
right? So, you
Little
know.
different cute things, but so yeah, too many accounts, and also I could see there being a desire for maybe a new old Twitter or something like that. Like Twitter in 2016 was peak, or maybe 2015. That's what people really want. Elon
I
Musk.
say let's take it back to 2010.
Yeah, there we go. Alex Jones is on there, just Wild West. But I mean, things have gotten better with Elon. He's making some changes I don't like, but something that I'm not excited about, and I can't imagine who would be, is that like Twitter with a worse AI, also moderated by Mark Zuckerberg. Like, what audience
Yeah.
does that have?
It's
Yeah.
they're under the impression that you're going to have a bunch of just unbelievably positive people being positive all the time.
Yeah, like tell me about your favorite coffee shop to go cozy up and get work done, guys. Drop
then-
it in the comments below.
That's not how that works.
Your entire timeline is just going to be curated forced positivity.
Yeah.
But like the dishonesty bothers me the most, because when Zuckerberg says that the reason Twitter hasn't worked or had 1 billion active users, that the reason for that is people on Twitter are too mean. I know he doesn't actually believe that. And
He
if
knows
he
that
were
that's not the works.
stupid enough to genuinely believe that would be one thing. But like, it's just a lie.
Yeah.
And he knows it's a lie.
People go on Twitter specifically to be mean. Like, that's why that happens.
Yeah.
It's me on people.
I mean, that's what Facebook was for.
Yeah.
Well, it's for
originally.
arguing with your aunt and uncle now that you never
Started
see.
out as a bro website where you could rate girls, and then turned into arguing with your extended family about politics. And now no one uses it.
And Mr. Beast has now surpassed Zuckerberg as the first person to 1 million Threads users. So hopefully he's not posting half-naked pictures to the kids looking at
Yeah.
his page. Let's keep it PG.
This Elon Musk parody account said, I spent $44 billion for this app, and now Lizard Boy just decided to hit copy and paste. It's personal now. See you in the cage, Zuck. When I first saw this, I did fall for it.
I thought it was real too.
I genuinely thought it was real.
The best satire works that way, right?
Yeah.
That like you buy it because you could totally believe that he would end up saying that.
Elon is wilding on Twitter.
Because
he
Elon's
is.
a meme lord. That's the way he is. So
So Elon is saying that Twitter's company secrets may have been used to copy and paste into the Threads business
Yeah.
model.
and
That would be, is that illegal? That, I mean, it's not poaching, because these employees at Twitter were already fired by the time they were recruited for Threads, right?
So it says less than 24 hours since Meta launched Threads, Musk's attorney, Alex Spiro, says that sent a cease and desist letter to Meta accusing the company of hiring dozens of former Twitter employees to create a copycat app.
I think this means that Twitter also needs to bring fleets back.
Wait, those were like the stories, right?
Yeah. They retired them,
Everyone's-
but now, like, if Instagram and Twitter are going to be direct competitors,
Yeah.
bring the fleets back.
And eventually, like, they'll keep extending the length of your shorts till it's basically video length, just the way that
Yeah.
TikTok has made their videos. They're 3 minutes now, unless you're like a priority
No,
creator.
you can do
10-minute videos.
Yeah, you
like-
could do full-length videos on TikTok, and now YouTube has shorts, and Instagram has Reels, and all of those you can post on Twitter. So it's just
It's all
very
just turning
confusing.
into the same thing.
Well, it's like we talked about with country music, right? Like it's the Borg. Like everything just ends up being kind of like a knockoff of everything else,
Yeah.
and nothing is
Yeah.
actually unique in any way because they're all competing. We got a big one there from Darth Doza.
He said, missed you all yesterday, but huge congratulations on 400. I guess today is the first step toward what comes next, and that is exciting. May your journey on PCC in life be full of wonder, sorrow, beauty, happiness, peace, and grace. Shalom.
That's such a nice comment.
Thank you.
So wholesome.
Speaking of wonder, sorrow, beauty, happiness, peace, and grace, I have looked into where I'm going to be getting my hair dyed. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to schedule an appointment. It's about a week out because I'm not going to just dye it myself this time because my hair is, I have a different haircut. So I'm going to have to get it done and actually make it blonde rather than orange this time.
Yeah.
It's going to have to be. And by the way, like we were discussing, what is worse? Okay, so Barbie's coming up, right? What is worse? Is it people imagining that you're dyeing your hair blonde just to go see Barbie? Or that you
Cosplay
dyed
as
your
Ken.
hair blonde after you saw it to be like Ken?
Thank you.
That's a crisis party. That's Ian.
So what triggers that?
Over a certain amount at $100, you get a crisis party.
Oh, nice.
It says we have two now.
It says we have two because I believe that it was at the exact same time. We're almost to two. It takes off the pennies at the end. But yeah, so what is worse? What is worse? Is it dyeing your hair blonde and the lady there thinking you're doing it because you're about to go see Barbie and you're just a super fan?
That's what you should tell everyone. Obviously.
I'm conflicted. There's no right answer
People
on
are going to
this
start
one.
mistaking you for Ryan Gosling in the streets.
Well, you
start
know.
asking you for
Of course.
selfies.
Yeah,
I
that's,
loved you in Barbie.
It's that's perfect. You know, my favorite Ryan Gosling thing is still when he did the Saturday Night Live thing about Avatar, about about papyrus font.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
He's like this man, this graphic designer, this professional.
Graphic design is his passion.
He just got away with it. and that came out like years before they actually made the sequel. So, you know, like if that's what they mistake me for, then so be it. But I don't think that comparison is going to actually happen. But I'm going to have to explain to not a lot of people are like, oh, your hair. I'm like, it's not because of Barbie. And then I have to cut him off right there. It's not because of Barbie, okay? Just no.
But the real reason is even harder to explain.
Yes,
So.
it's like I'm a whore. Right? I'm a whore, and I did it for.
I did it for money for the videos I make online, and that's all you need to know. My paying customers online wanted this.
It's what it is, you know. I can't wait to say that. That one I actually will say. Like I have no problem. Somehow that to me is less embarrassing than saying it was because of Barbie. Like saying it's because I'm a whore online and my
my simps paid me $3,000 to bleach my hair.
Let's go.
No big deal.
All right, I want to move on. Let's talk about Kevin Costner for a minute because you know what? In a world today where men can be women and women can be men and all of the gender roles and everything are screwed up, a good old-fashioned divorce case full of child custody disputes and an alimony and all these things seems oddly wholesome for American culture back in the day in a really, really depressing and insincere way. But Kevin Costner's estranged wife says that $51,000 worth of child support a month just isn't enough.
Are they still married?
They are separated and they are getting divorced. So Christine claims that Kevin spends $240,000 a month on himself and the kids when they're with him. That Dutton money is going very far, right? That Yellowstone money is going very, very far. Or Field of Dreams money, if you love the movie Field of Dreams. He's expecting her to need to take care of the kids when they're with her, and it says $52,000 a month. They round it up. It isn't enough. As he charges $65,000 a month for the home that he rents out, and she doesn't even get that. And she's saying look, they had nannies, they have people that work in the house, they have people that clean the pool and all this stuff. How am I supposed to pay for all this and give my kids
can't live off crumbs?
The life that they were accustomed to, right? Those poor kids. Something tells me if he's spending $240,000 a month when he's with them, some of that carries over to when they just move from one location to another. It's shocking to me because these are those discussions where you're like, it's real. These are real problems that adults are having. That's fine. But then when normal people hear this stuff, they're just like, I can't
relate to this.
I can't,
I
bro.
cannot feel bad for you. This is
Which our cringe of the day is exactly that.
$52,000 a month. You really can't make that work. And then it's really funny because his lawyer, me and Mary talk a lot about how lawyers their job, and it's true, right?
Well, legally, do you have to disclose how child support is spent?
No, I don't
think
believe
so.
Yeah, exactly. If she's accounting for all the costs of him supporting the kids, then it would only make sense that she would have to report exactly how all these dollars are spent.
It says Kevin's estranged wife says that the kids are used to having a team of people hired to maintain the home and the property, including assistants and helpers who handle schedules, grocery shopping, food prep. You know, maybe it would be a good outing. Like when my parents...
I think it'd be probably a good thing for these kids to have a break from that, actually.
Yeah.
So what's funny is this is going to sound depressing, but it's not meant to. When my parents divorced, my dad started taking us to church again. So that became a thing that we did as a family, right? So you reconnect in certain ways. Maybe they don't want to go to church, fine. But maybe she goes grocery shopping with the kids and they do that together. It becomes a family bonding experience.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. It says she requested $248,000 a month.
Oh, so she wants more than he spent.
Yes. Yeah. So
Amazing.
his accountant is saying that some of her expenses included more than $100,000 of her own cosmetic procedures and boutique shopping. You know,
Well, the kids are used to mama looking a certain way with her fillers and her Botox, so they can't expect her to let herself go. That wouldn't be good for the children.
What if they woke up one day and she was scary looking because the fillers had drooped and she just didn't look right anymore?
Yeah,
The
that would
kids
be
might get scared.
traumatizing.
They'd be very, very scared, right? It reminds me of this video. If you don't know who Musings of a Crouton is on Instagram, she's absolutely fantastic. She has this one. It says like Calabasas mom, and it's basically she's like she talks about having like the live-in surgeon and the constant fillers and stuff like that. It's really, really great. So you know what, Kevin. I'm not saying this is going to make Kevin like one of those MGTOW bros, but this will make anybody angry if they're talking about stuff like this. Especially because she was mad at him because he's spending all his time doing Yellowstone, and he's like, "Look, I'm out here getting this bag, lady. Like I'm making
You're gonna
you the
get
money.
mad at him for going out and securing the bag, but then you also want the bag.
You want to spend the bag.
Is there
It's
a way
not
we could
making
turn this
sense to
down?
me.
Yeah. Yep.
Sorry. Disrupting the show.
That's okay.
Better.
Yeah, that's better.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, like she's mad that he wants that he has to go out and make the money,
Which is a weirdly like universal thing that like wives get mad when their husbands spend too much time working.
There was a viral video,
Which I think you should be able to do, but you can't simultaneously be like, I need more money.
Right.
Like, he has to spend
How
his
else
time.
would he bring in the millions?
Exactly.
There was a viral video a couple years ago of a lady who basically she's like a trophy wife influencer, where basically she explains in this video, she's like, you're going to have to get used to being alone a lot of the time, because if you want him to make the money that he's making, he's going to be working a lot.
Sometimes women want that because
They would
don't-
rather not be with their husband because maybe they don't even like their husband. They just want the money. So
if you're
that's
not
perfect.
marrying for love, it's better to have more time to yourself anyway.
Yeah.
So that was I always thought that was interesting because the way she did it always felt like it was almost resigned. Like she was like talking about it in a way like, look, this is just the reality of the world you live in. And on one hand, that's kind of depressing.
Yes.
But on the
Right.
other hand, it's also more realistic to the type of message we tell people these days, which is like, you can have love and you can have all this stuff and you can have it all. And, and if you settle for anything less, you're shorting yourself. But this woman has just decided she's made a value judgment on what she wants from life. And you can judge her if you want about whether that's a good thing or not, but she's being honest about it. And she's not saying go out and cheat. She's saying get used to the fact that,
I mean, one of the trade-offs that these women make usually is that they kind of give their husband license to sleep
Cheat,
around.
yeah.
Just because they're benefiting materially from it.
we're going to talk about Pearl Davis later. So that's, it fits in that context. All right.
Well, Pearl doesn't think that a guy needs to make any money to have license to cheat. So
Yeah, that's just...
he doesn't have to earn it. It's his right.
It's his right, ladies and gentlemen. All right, what would you like first, cute or cringe of the day? I did get a cute of the day submission.
Okay, let's go with cute and then cringe.
Okay, so first things first. Originally, I did not have a cute of the day, so let's show the Donald Trump video first, guys.
This
You're
is
gonna
just
laugh at this.
So wholesome.
It is. So here's it's Donald Trump in Grimace, because remember the Grimace Shake challenge is Grimace Shake is going on right now.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. There's an old commercial of him. Maybe somebody can tell me what year this came out, but this video is hilarious. So let's watch it. It's about 30 seconds long. If we get copyrighted, I'll clip it out later.
I don't know how you do it. I put together some really impressive deals. But this thing you've pulled off, it's amazing. A big and tasty for just $1? How do you do it? What's your secret?
Got a buck? You're in luck. Because you can get a delicious beefy big and tasty, a McChicken
$1.
sandwich, and lots of your other favorites
That
on
is a
McDonald's
great
Dollar
deal.
Menu every
Such
day.
a savings.
Together, Grimace, we could own this town.
The dollar menu doesn't even exist
It doesn't.
anymore.
Unbelievably
It's a $1,
wholesome.
$2, and $3 menu.
Yeah.
Get out of my face with that.
Unbelievably wholesome as far as I'm concerned. You know, say what you want about the Donald, but that was great. He was always born
A
for
purer
Hollywood.
time.
It was, like we said earlier, we used to be a country.
Yeah.
Even
Never
adjusting
forget what
for
they took from us.
inflation, $1 is like still cheap.
Yep.
Cheap as hell.
Yep. So
I hadn't heard the big and tasty in years.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard that phrase.
it was like a weird core memory that had been like
Unlocked.
unlocked
Yeah.
in my brain. Where it's like I imagine that someday that will happen. Like actually, that's happened to like friends who like live in Florida where they didn't have chili cheese burrito. They got rid of the chili cheese burrito at Taco Bell in Florida, and I still make fun of them for this.
Why? That seems so specific.
And like I mentioned it one day to a friend. I have no idea why the hell we were talking about it. He goes, "Oh my gosh, I haven't thought about a chili cheese burrito in like 15 years." And I immediately started making fun of him. Like, you don't have the chili cheese burrito? You may have a governor, but you guys don't have shit for fast food. That is true. We got a $20 one there from Clint Torres.
He said, howdy peoples. Brett, your hair is suspiciously dark. Hey Mary, hello Miss Lauren. Loved your contribution to the Culture War podcast.
Thank you.
Look,
You were gonna give him less than 24 hours to make good on this bet.
I
really?
had the weekend last time, and that was when we just did it ourselves. It's going to take some
Yeah,
time
I did
here.
the courtesy last time of bleaching Brett's hair.
I
think
make-
a professional should do it this time.
I make good on my wagers. You all know that. I'm a man of my word, and it's going to happen. So don't
I am
don't get
going
on
to
me
review
yet.
Attack on Titan.
Yes. All right. And then we do have a cute of the day. This submission from Serenko Productions. That is adorable. This
like
is
a
Luna.
snowball.
Luna is adorable. Luna looks tired there. And there's another one. Look at adorable. Adorable.
It's like a Samoyed, but I don't know dog breeds.
It's so adorable. And then we had Bokus up here yesterday on the show.
Yeah.
He showed up.
The money gun went off and he got startled, so we were like, maybe this wasn't as good of a
Yeah,
as we thought.
so we moved it. So
I don't want him to like have a heart attack on air.
Oh,
Yeah,
can
that
you
would have
imagine
been bad.
that?
That would have
be
been
so
really
sad.
bad.
Like you go downstairs and Tim's like, and you're like,
I'll just pack my stuff.
I'm
I'll go.
it's been fun.
I'll see myself out.
It's been fun,
It's nice
ladies and
knowing you.
gentlemen. It's been fun, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's do cringe of the day. So first, we could do either Courtney and Kim, or we can do Drake. What would
Let's
you
start
prefer?
with Drake. Drake
All right.
shared a photo with a Taylor Swift doppelganger recently.
It does look like her. If you see in this photo, you can see it over here.
I thought that was her. I
his-
could not. And I mean, now that I'm looking, I get it. But this looks a lot like Taylor Swift.
His caption is, "Congrats on the drop, sis. Dialed in."
To me, it looks like somebody drew Taylor Swift from memory. Like,
I got it like 80%.
yeah, that's what it looks like to me. I like it. And
I
then-
like the idea that Drake genuinely thought this was Taylor Swift and fell for it.
That's good. That's good stuff. I mean, that happens sometimes. Like sometimes celebrities pose with people and don't
Yeah.
realize that they're like who they're posing with is good because you can't expect them to know everyone. That's just not possible, right? So I like it, and I also like that Drake has been controversial this week because he painted his nails. So people were all making fun of him for having painted nails. It's like imagine like. Drake just has so much money.
Oh my goodness.
That he can paint his nails.
Wait, is
and he
that
doesn't care.
controversial? I mean, Pucks have been doing that forever. How's
She
People are
looks like
giving
she
him crap
has
for
money
it.
tucked into her dress. Did he like pass her some cash to take this photo with her?
Yeah, right there.
It's right in her dress.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
I
really
see
fun.
it now.
I mean, if she's a waitress, that
How
might
much
just
do you
be-
think he paid her for the photo?
like, if that's a waitress, like that's not the most sanitary place to keep your money, but you know, like that's
I
like a
respect
trope.
the grind.
It's like a trope in the old movies where like the waitress puts the money in
In
her
the
bra,
yeah.
and you're just like, do you break 20s with that? Like I don't know.
I don't know.
Touch
Without the
that.
red lipstick, I don't think I see it as much.
Yeah.
I saw that on the screen. I actually thought that was Taylor Swift. I was like, that's a nice photo of Drake
From
and
far
Taylor Swift.
away, I
No.
would definitely mistake her.
Now I know what we need to do. Do you know? Have you ever seen the fake Drake? The guy who goes to clubs
Oh,
in
yeah.
Miami. There's
he,
a
like,
guy named
pulls
Fake
girls
Drake.
at clubs because they think he's Drake.
Oh my gosh.
We need fake Drake to take a picture with fake Taylor Swift.
Is that misconduct? Like, if they're
Oh.
consenting,
I feel like in the UK that could actually get you in jail. Like
they're
they have,
consenting to Drake. They're
Yeah.
not consenting to fake Drake.
Like the question is, does he tell them I'm Drake, or do they assume and he just never corrects them? Like there is some ethical issues there, but he's just like he's like, hey, you thought I was Drake. I let you keep believing it. I didn't say
and also,
that's
I mean,
who
in
I
his
was.
defense, if he's bringing them back to like some split bungalow or something, and they still think he's Drake. Like that. Yeah.
That's on them.
That's on them.
Or maybe he's like, Drake wants to, he speaks in the first person. Drake wants to see your place.
Yeah.
I like Drake's like normal guy flannel and jeans look here.
The flannel looks a little too clean. Like he just took it out of the...
It looks pressed.
Yes,
Yeah.
He's wearing it for the first time right there. I mean, I said the same thing when Eric Trump was here. I'm like, why is he wearing a flannel shirt? And like, it's like, you're like the son of a billionaire. Like,
It's a little too relatable.
Well, I'm distrustful of any and all politicians.
As you should be. As you should be.
Regardless of
Roll
party.
up your sleeves and do a rally in a barn.
He's from what everybody's told me, they're like, he lives it. Like, I'm like, that's fine, but you should still be immediately distrustful and let them prove it to you. It's just the safer way to go. All right, let's look at this. So this is a video that somebody recorded on their phone of the Kardashians.
Yes. Speaking of problems that we can't relate to.
Yes.
As middle class people.
Here we go.
I got married in Italy. Am I saying you copied me by getting married in Italy? Who performed at my wedding? Andrea
the music is the
Bocelli.
best part.
Who performed at Courtney's wedding? Andrea Bocelli. You stole my wedding country and my wedding performer. Andrea Bocelli is my favorite male singer of all time, but I'm copying her Dolce Vita lifestyle. Okay.
We live in deeply unserious times.
Yeah.
I think my favorite part is like, just imagine all of the poor saps in the lower middle class that have had to share like wedding DJs. Sorry, it's just a thing.
Yeah.
So that's a job that people have. Like, you stole my wedding DJ. Like, no, it's just it's not
You can always
fair.
get married again and do whatever you want with that.
Like, that's that is a hard no for me. I
You
just
can get
think
married as many times as you want.
Considering it's Kim Kardashian, she probably will get married several more times.
it's
so.
actually funnier if when she gets married, she makes the guy's dad pay for it. She's like, I'm a traditional girl when I want to
Makes
be.
Pete Davidson's dad, who is dead,
Yes,
pay for it.
when she needs to save a buck or two, because that's the secret. That's how rich people stay rich. They're cheap and they get tips.
Do you think that Kanye paid for the wedding?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
I think
absolutely
so.
do.
I bet.
I absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, he was also like she was big, but she wasn't as big as she became until after they got married, right? She was on her
Probably
way up.
surpassed his net worth at this point.
with all of
No,
the
but now,
dropping
yeah.
that happened after the whole
Yeah.
thing, then I think now she's probably better off than him. But all her companies that she started, that wasn't until after they got married, I think.
So he would have definitely paid for it. It's funnier if he's like, let's go Dutch on the wedding. He's like, look, he's like, I like
that
you.
Kim and Kanye split the bill.
That's actually a fair question. How the hell do ultra rich people who are both ultra rich decide who pays?
I think it's immaterial at that point. I'd have to imagine.
They just leave and they expect their staff to just take care of it. Like, there was the video where Trump went to like
He went to a coffee shop
and
and he
didn't
told
pay.
everyone there that he would pay for their
And then he
lunch.
didn't.
And then the
Yeah.
staffer,
And it-
I guess, dropped the ball and didn't.
like he forgot to tell somebody to pay the bill. It's not like he's ducking out on checks, or if he is, it's purely for the thrill of it. And it's just like he just gets a charge out of deciding not to pay. Like, he pays later anyways, but
Whatever it is, it's a power move.
yeah, he does it to be a little. He's like, he wants to be a little bit crazy once in a while. It'd be funny if that's what they ended up indicting him on. Like that's how they actually finally get him is like going off.
Dine and ditching or whatever.
Yeah, dine and dash. Yeah,
Dine and dash, there
they're
we
like,
go.
look, all those secrets in your office, that's one thing, but you didn't pay this poor waitress. No. All right, let's go ahead and let's talk about you for a few minutes, shall we? Because we were talking last night, and I wanted to talk to you about the fact that I was looking through your videos, and like I said, I'd watched since Roaming Millennial back then
is
too.
so awesome.
But I was paying attention to the fact that there seem to be a lot more uploads to Mediaholic lately, which is your channel in which you cover stuff like this.
Yeah.
So is there been a decided choice to upload more to that channel rather than political stuff lately?
So for people who don't subscribe to me yet, but you will.
should.
I started off doing videos on my main channel, which is just my name, Lauren Chen, and it's social, political stuff. I kind of like what Tim does. And what is it, maybe 2 and a bit years ago, I actually started a second channel, Mediaholic, that initially was just a side project for fun because I love movies, love talking about entertainment and pop culture stuff like on this show. And I wanted a different place to do it. But now it's almost like you were saying, I upload there more than my main channel, and it's honestly because I'm just more excited about the cultural stuff, about the entertainment stuff. I mean, I've found the news cycle for the past month pretty uninteresting, which is why I haven't done any main channel videos. But simultaneously, we've had, Indiana Jones 5 come out. We've had, a few weeks ago, Cleopatra on Netflix that everyone was hating on. The Witcher Season 3. I'm getting ready to do a review on that. There's just so much more to talk about, or at least that's interesting me currently.
The news cycle is so fast. Like Cleopatra feels like a lifetime.
Yeah, I know,
ago.
right? When you mentioned that, I forgot that it happened.
It's like that was like 5 controversies ago, and that was like holy crap, right? So, when doing that, like, and you're a mom now.
Yes.
So has the way that media's gone, especially with whether we're talking about Indiana Jones, all these things, there's obviously going to be a lot of talk about whether things are the right thing to be put in the media.
Mm-hmm.
One thing we like to trash on is like the horrible reality shows that get made, like MILF Manor and stuff like this, right? Like, has waking up to the culture and being somebody who creates content, has that made it open your eyes more to what you're going to be allowing the kids to watch?
I don't see how it could be any other way, right? Because my dad and I, who does some reviews with me, we went to go see like Lightyear and Strange World, and my daughter, she's too young to take the movies right now, but just sitting in that chair the whole time I was thinking I would never actually take my child to see this. There are so many things we can't take for granted that family movies are as wholesome and non-controversial as when we were kids, because they're just not. They're trying to put social messaging in there. Disney, an employee was caught on camera saying, not caught on camera, she said it on camera, like purposefully, like not so secret gay agenda is being pushed.
That lady was the lady who recently left, was the one who was the head of that entire
diversity,
movement. And that wasn't getting caught on camera. That was literally saying, we are doing it, we're doing it on purpose.
I'm saying this in our Zoom meeting because I'm proud of it. So absolutely, I would not at this point let my child watch something that I hadn't already seen. And I don't want to be like that mom, but I was talking to a friend from college who's not political at all, and he was saying how he just took his kids to see Elemental, and I was just like, yeah.
It's not even just the socio-political messaging that's in family entertainment now. It's also just that the stories are so much less imaginative and creative.
They're just not as good, yeah.
And taking your kids to see a Pixar movie, whether it's politicized or not, it can like kill the imagination of the next generation. That all of this is just stuff that's made by adults for themselves.
Right. That's why with Pixar lately, there any concept they have now is like, oh, this wacky concept, but it's actually like a city, like New York. Like that's what Elemental was, and like that was kind of cool at first. They kind of did the monster version of that with like Monsters Inc. But it gets kind of old. And I remember when I was in college, I did screenwriting for a bit. They would always say, write what you know, write what you know. And I understand the theory and concept of that, but after a certain point it's like, but then what's the point of having an imagination or fantasy? We want to get out of what we know when we go see movies sometimes.
And it's one of the problems of a lot of these, a lot of Hollywood now, is you're not allowed to write anything other than what you know, right?
Yeah.
So that would talk about when Christopher Priest would talk about writing comics. He'd say that like when he was a younger writer, he was allowed to write anything that he wanted because as a writer, it's your job to do the research. Tom Clancy, I always list Tom Clancy. He wasn't in the military, but he made great military fiction because he did a crap ton of research, and he worked hard to get the details right. Getting the details right requires research and work, but now they don't want you to do the research and work. They want you to just make everything a self-insert, and that's not interesting nor imaginative. And it's beyond that even further because they're actually culturally enforcing that it's bad to write something more than what you know. I don't know if you guys saw this story from, it was like 3 years ago, about this lady who wrote, she was like an executive at like a firm, at like a law firm or like a marketing agency. She had a very corporate job, and she wrote a book, a YA novel that got published or was getting published, and like got ragged on because it was I believe she was either Japanese or Chinese.
I remember hearing about this.
You remember this story, right? And she got bullied so hard she pulled her own book. First of all, she did exactly what she shouldn't do. She bent the knee.
Yeah.
She made the changes. They're like, you can't write about slavery because apparently only America has ever experienced slavery. So what would you know about it, right? And she did the wrong thing. She bent the knee. She removed it, and then eventually just pulled the book altogether because these people lack joy and they're not actually creative, nor do they enjoy actually bringing things to life. What they want to do is sit there and be the judge of what everybody else brings to life so that they can build it down, so they can strip it down and make it fit within their ideological viewpoint. That's, first of all, extremely depressing, but it's kind of a thief of joy in a lot of things. All of these things should be joyful. Like when I was criticizing Indiana Jones, I said, more than anything, I feel like it doesn't go forward with love. It doesn't go forward with love for the character. It doesn't go forward with love for adventure. It feels very corporate and produced, and that's the real problem here is everything you're seeing now. Whether we're talking about Disney and Pixar back then, Disney might have been a staple, but it was the wild, wild west in entertainment at that time, and they were making stuff and creating things to get ahead in the market. Same thing with Pixar. Disney ended up having to buy Pixar because they were cutting into their market share. There's none of that anymore. It's all just create the safest content we can with the most political messaging that we can either sneak in there because we want to appeal to an audience that doesn't go to the movies anyways. They don't spend money. At least that seems to be what I've noticed over the years. They don't actually come out in force for this stuff. And I don't know if this is something that we can do beyond just having to make our own stuff. Obviously, Eric D. July is doing that. There's comic creators. There's people. We talked with Paul Rowland, who did Exemplum, who made a fantastic movie on a budget of $9,000. Like, there's a lot of ways this stuff can be combated. But it's interesting because I do believe that this stuff is now more interesting than the political cycle and far more important to what we're covering.
No, you're right about that. And the thing with, I guess, people who are really interested in the political cycle, when you ignore culture, which is what conservatives and people on the right did for like literally generations, but cultural messaging is basically political messaging, you can't act surprised like, oh, why is everybody left? Why is everybody a different gender now? It's like, have you not been watching Netflix for the past, however many years? It's because this is what's being promoted. So, I mean, politics is downstream of culture. It's not the other way around. So you can't ignore it. And
so you mentioned you're in some group chats with other moms. Do you feel like the sentiment is growing amongst parents these days? Or like, I'm not plugged into that. It just seems like parents are either shielding their kids excessively from the culture, or they're like plopping them in front of the TV or the iPad, watching Cocomelon, watching like whatever comes up in their algorithm, and it's like the two extreme poles. But like, what do you feel the sentiment is with other parents right now?
Well, I feel other parents, even ones who aren't political and maybe who don't want to be political, they're at the very least waking up to the fact that companies like Disney, they've really changed a lot in what their goal seems to be in regard to entertainment. I mean, we saw that with Strange World and Lightyear. Like, these should have been huge movies for Disney, but they weren't. They lost tons and tons of money. It's because ultimately parents, they just want to have nice, wholesome entertainment. They're not bringing their kids to have some sort of political message shoved at them so they can have an awkward conversation in a car ride home about how two women can have a baby or something like happened in Lightyear. And so parents are just kind of pretty sick of it. And I think that's why Disney is continuing to struggle, and they will keep struggling as long as Disney doesn't accept that they are not actually parental figures in this dynamic. They're just there to entertain with wholesome stuff.
They see themselves as that, though. It's the same type of ivory tower mindset that all of these people have, right? It's not just that they're making their entertainment for you and that you should just take whatever they serve and enjoy it, that they know what's best for you and your children.
Right.
These people, especially female executives at these companies who don't actually have children of their own, are using media to indoctrinate and teach children, which is like, I guess, their surrogate child is like the audience that they have control over.
Yeah. And you mentioned Cocomelon, which is like, I don't think Cocomelon is woke or anything, but I think
it is mindless.
It is mindless, and people our age, I mean, I think my parents they couldn't have known like what the effects of video games were on the brain for someone young, because I don't think there was that kind of research and conversation happening at that time. But I feel like parents who are younger, we now recognize that, yeah, we need to be wary about, for example, junk food for our kids, but there's also junk media. And so that's something that I think, the crunchy moms out there, especially, like, there's a whole new wave of parents who are saying, okay, 0 screen time, because I know that this is going to affect your attention span, just your development, whatever it may be.
It absolutely is, because my attention span is shot from social media, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't think that you should shield your kids from everything, though, because if you shield them from where the culture is for years and years and, don't allow them to have any exposure to it, then you're sending them out into the adult world and they don't have any preparation or like tools to respond to any of this insanity. You have
to be able to have let them go at a certain point, but be able to have those conversations with them openly and honestly.
And ideally those conversations would happen when a kid is old enough to ask the question, not when Disney introduces them to an idea.
Exactly. So I think for a lot of these things, it's like, it's not that I want my kids to never watch a movie ever, because obviously I love movies.
Yeah.
I have a whole channel about them, so it can be a fun thing, right? It should be a fun thing where like a family goes out with like movies, theater together, popcorn. Like that's just such a quintessential part of my childhood memories. But it's about what are we watching, how much are we watching it.
I will point out that, like, look, back in the day, RoboCop was had toys for kids. RoboCop is not a movie for kids, right? Like
Yeah.
the 80s was they were different back then, right? Like it's one of my favorite things is watching old stuff like that and being like, wow, they really just let us watch anything. But that was just like violence for the sake of violence back then.
Yeah.
Which was something that still, I think, at your core you can inherently know is more wrong than these social issues, which are far murkier than the idea that like that RoboCop just taking out a bunch of executives is not necessarily the safest thing.
Well, as Cher Horowitz said, until we can stop having violence on the news, there's no use in taking it out of TV and movies for entertainment value.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I do want to ask you this because I asked you to think about it last night. I said, is there anything we complain a lot here? It happens. Most of these channels they tend to be critical because you do want to hold these companies accountable, so they'll hopefully at some point make changes and do better. Is there anything, however, that you think has been very good recently?
So very good is hard, but with that said, I watched season 3 of Jack Ryan. I enjoyed that. I like John Krasinski. I have the caveat that it is very clearly CIA propaganda, but it's interesting. I think it's well written. I don't think it's woke or anything like that. So that's fun. If you're into that genre, I think that's done well. I'm in the middle of watching Reacher. I'm very late to the game
Reacher
on that
is, I sang the praises of Reacher for like 2 years because I was like, look,
It's good.
if you're looking for something that is the quintessence, like this is exactly what you should be looking for. Amazon is the weirdest company because they are as hit and miss as it gets.
They have Rings of Power, but also this. It's like...
And my theory on that is like, look, when you're making a Reacher or a Jack Ryan, you're looking for the middle-aged dad market who are going to watch that stuff. But when you're making the Rings of Power, you're looking to grab the younger market. That's where they shove the messaging in because they're looking. They look at the market of the Jack Ryans and the Reachers. That's a lost market to them. They're like, we'll make it. Maybe it makes us some money. It's good to have the IP, but they don't need to insert it there because the dads will just tune out.
Right.
The kids are more vulnerable to this stuff in the fantasy media.
So do you think, and this is something that's worrying me, because obviously Warhammer 40K, this huge property, Amazon's going to be doing something with Henry Cavill. Which way do you think that's going to go? Which way?
It depends on how much power he ends up having as a producer on that project, right? Because the instinct, I believe, will be to shove in as much messaging as possible because that's how they view that genre.
With what we know about how he, pushed back on the Witcher producers, I think he's going to have more control over this. He's not going to let it get ruined.
Let's hope, because I don't know how much more heartbreak Henry Cavill can take.
Yeah, how many more series can ditch him or he leaves before?
Like what hope does the rest of America or the world have when this is the guy who can't seem to catch a break? He's like, it's funny too, because I was rewatching Count of Monte Cristo recently, and he's in the Count of Monte Cristo, like very young. Like if this guy who's basically built like a Titan can't seem to catch a break, then what hope do the rest of us have, I ask you? So yes, is there anything you're looking forward to?
I mean, like I said, I'm looking forward to the Barbie movie, probably not for the expectation that is good. However, Oppenheimer, my husband wants to see it. We'll go see it. It's not necessarily my genre. I'm not as much into straight drama. Yeah. It's a little bit heavy for me. I cry very easily during movies. I try to avoid that. But I think it will be good, especially like Cillian Murphy. I do really like him as an actor. Peaky Blinders was the series that I really enjoyed. So I'm excited to see that for him.
Did you see the Ron DeSantis war
I
room
did,
thing?
yeah. That they shouldn't have used that clip. I think they were just asking to be denounced at that point.
Well, they were just reposting something that someone had, like some fan account had posted before.
Yeah,
right?
somebody else made it.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think Ron DeSantis is hiring people that are good at making Sigma male grind set edits.
He's too boring to do
he's
that.
too
Like I don't
to
imagine that
figure out where the culture is at.
He's like, what are those their videos there? So yeah. Speaking of depressing media that makes people cry, let's talk about Sound of Freedom, because you have opted not to see this movie.
Yes. Okay. So I have a young daughter. Like I said, I don't like dramas. I cry very easily, especially anything to do with kids. So I just know this movie will break my heart.
Yeah. So let's talk, however, about how the media is framing it, because this is a hit job of the highest order that's going on right now between the creators of Sound of Freedom and articles from the likes of Jezebel and The Guardian. And the reason I ended up wanting to cover it is because there ended up gaining a lot of traction on Twitter of people calling them out for how biased their takes on this stuff were.
Yeah.
And if you read these articles, guys, I do encourage everyone to go read the Jezebel article in particular, because they have a real problem with this movie.
They said Sound of Freedom is an anti-child trafficking fantasy fit for QAnon. Star Jim Caviezel has been talking about adrenochrome and organ harvesting on his press tour.
Which has nothing to do with the movie.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the content of the movie, which has nothing to do with QAnon conspiracy theories, organ harvesting, adrenochrome, etc. But if we're able to do mainstream studio movies the courtesy of disregarding what is said in the press tours by all these stars,
Which is what we're doing for Barbie.
which is
We're
exactly what we're doing for Barbie, then it's only fair that they do the same thing when it comes from a smaller studio with a smaller budget.
We're literally like, I'm like, oh, Kate McKinnon, that does sound stupid, but I'm going to ignore it. I'll let it slide.
We
We're
do
gonna
that
go
all
see
the time,
movie.
and we always give stuff a chance. Like, I'm not going into any movies deciding how I'm going to feel about it.
Exactly. So oddly enough, what's funny is I actually think they do themselves the most disservice when they do these press tours, because they always think they sound. It always sounds to me like actors who wish they did something that they felt was more important with their lives. So they try to elevate the meaning of their profession to a higher level than what it actually needs to be. And that's one thing if you're in the theater or you're making like art house films that you believe have this really big, important message. But when it's a big budget Hollywood movie, you're making corporate art. Like, don't raise it to the level of poetry. That's fine. And that's like, it's fine. It's okay.
It's okay to just want to entertain people and make them have fun, or
they don't like that. They want to both entertain you and talk down to you.
Jim Caviezel as Timothy Ballard tearfully recites, over 2 million children a year are being sucked into the deepest recesses of hell. At last, QAnon's camp appeal gets the cinematic exploration it demands.
And they
As if child trafficking is some QAnon conspiracy theory and it doesn't happen in the real world.
They also turned it into a political issue. Like, the harming of children should not be a left or right issue in any way, shape, or form. This should be, like, it actually is kind of one of the most blackpilling things ever. Like, if we can't even come together on the abuse of children, what the hell can we come together on? Like, if we can't all decide collectively hurting kids is bad, I don't know how much hope there is.
But I think it has to do with the tribalism, because I don't think that if it were this specific person that was attached to it and the specific actor as well, that they would care as much. But it's basically, they're like, oh, right-wing people maybe even, and like Christian people are attached to this, therefore I have to attack it.
Even though it was already filmed completely under the supervision of Fox,
yes,
right?
It was a 20th Century Fox film,
Yeah.
so it wasn't this to begin with. To be fair, like, look, the producers of this movie did not want Jim Caviezel. Tim Ballard insisted that he play the role, and he looks, if you look at the pictures of him, he actually has a fair, once they get the hair dyed, he has a fair amount of resemblance to him. But, you know, the producers who their goal is, if you fall in the camp that they're there to make money, they're looking at Jim Caviezel and seeing him as box office poison,
right?
Because they're taking the Hollywood line that they think that the rest of America doesn't like this guy, when it's really just Hollywood that doesn't like this guy because of the Passion of the Christ. Because
I'm pretty
he's
sure that
outspoken.
movie did pretty well, though, if I remember things.
Are you gonna watch the sequel when it comes out? They're making a sequel.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that.
Passion of the Christ 2 Electric Boogaloo.
I don't know how to feel about that. I don't think we need a sequel.
Yeah, you know, cause it's okay. So they told him, they said, look, we don't want Jim Caviezel for this role, and these articles are why. Because this is the type of press that happens. It's actually working in the studio's favor now, because it's allowing them to get all this great press. It outshone Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I mean, everything. A turd outshines the Dial of Destiny. No offense. No, actually, never mind. Offense. I don't really care about Disney these days. But, like, they're so mad about it. And if you want to talk about media framing and just how bad it is, they do exactly what you expect all of these articles to do, which is lie by structure, which is by the last paragraph, the guy basically admits that it wasn't a bad movie.
He said it was well acted. It looked expensive.
And he says, I'm going to read you a quote that he says, this was the one that set me off. And he says... He's talking about the end of the movie, so this isn't. Maybe I should avoid this one.
Do you want us to avoid spoilers, or are you like set? You're not going to watch.
I'm definitely not going to watch it. 100%.
Guys, skip. Pause for about 15 seconds while I give this quote. If you're going to see this movie, he says Ballard. He goes to rescue the child at the end of the movie from the jungle. It says Ballard throws the kid he rescues into a van that speeds away, and the only thing that visually distinguishes this from a kidnapping is the implied virtue.
The implied virtue of saving a child from her abuser.
He literally saves a child from a person who is abusing a child and brings the kid back to her father, and that is implied virtue. That is the most disgusting.
Like you're trafficking a child back to her father?
Yeah.
This is like taking your kid to soccer practice trafficking.
Yes. The Christian, they talk about the Christian undercurrent of the film. Look, the only line in this movie that could even be remotely considered a Christian undercurrent is the line, God's children are not for sale, which as far as I'm concerned is expertly delivered and perfectly in line with something that somebody of Tim Ballard's background and life would say.
Like, are we just supposed to brush over the fact that Timothy Ballard is a Christian in real life?
Like, what it is it's weird because this might actually be, if they were more fair to it, they would actually be able to make sure that the faith-based films that they hate so much might actually get better. Because as far as I'm concerned, this movie is the gold standard for being faith-based but not preachy to people that are not religious. I'm agnostic. I'm not of any religious denomination. I got under no circumstances any amount of inkling other than the fact that I knew the studio had faith-based projects, that it was anything of the sort.
Also, his accomplices in doing this sting operation in the movie were not religious people, and they were also extremely nuanced and morally complicated characters.
Yep.
They say it's not ham-fisted at all.
The film could be seen as adjacent to the alt-right paranoia that was originally stoked by 4chan and QAnon. Look,
they said also, how distant can Ballard, and by extension his organization, be from QAnon when the guy who's playing him, with whom he's been promoting Sound of Freedom, has been using the press opportunity to peddle QAnon theories about adrenochrome and organ harvesting?
We got a $20 super chat there from Angrospaz Marine.
Oh, he said, Passion of the Christ 2, The Easter Rising.
That's what it is. Look, like there's nothing you can do to people with this much political poison in their brain.
And that's what's ironic. These are people who love ham-fisted political messaging, but you even have one line they don't like. They will use it to brand your movie some alt-right. Exactly.
They also express distaste for Jim Caviezel's message at the end of the film, where he promotes this pay it forward program where you can pay for someone else's ticket to watch the movie. And they call it shameless begging, underlining a desperation to disseminate. A desperation to disseminate information about a real world problem.
And asking people to be kind and generous to other people. Remember, like we said, nobody is meaner to you than the person who has be kind in their social media profile. These are those people. And it also, the same thing was said in the Guardian article. And what I found the most hilarious about that is I had to literally click away a pop-up message that says, please donate to keep the Guardian going, as they're complaining about them choosing to do that in this movie. They also use the pay it forward method as their their excuse as to why it beat Dial of Destiny. The mega ultra super cope that came from this article from We Got This Cover. They say Sound of Freedom overtook Indiana Jones on the 4th of July based on a technicality.
Because all of the people who were going to watch Dial of Destiny were having barbecues with their families. So
these people are evil, dude.
It's cope.
These people
They've
are
also
evil.
already made their money back because they had a small budget.
I mean, and not necessarily because the theater keeps 50%, so they probably still have to make a little bit more.
It's been out for a few days now, right?
So I don't know if it's made $30 million.
But maybe that's why you don't have like a 20-minute intro scene that requires the de-aging process, because that's going to burn through your budget.
What's funny about that is I was watching that, I'm just like, it actually does, as realistic as it looks, it still does a disservice because he was such a handsome, like Harrison Ford had such sharp features. Like I rewatched Temple of Doom and he's got dark, hollow, sharp features that they can't really replicate with that technology. It looks gaudy and like painted on.
I thought it looked it was uncanny valley. It was almost
Yes.
like his skin was shimmering or moving.
Yeah.
And
There
the
were-
voice.
Yeah, the voice. Yeah, the voice did not seem like a young man's or even a middle-aged man's voice.
Which is weird because that's the technology they have the most ability to like. My
I
new
think they
favorite,
just didn't bother touching the audio.
My new favorite genre is listening to AI versions of artists cover other artists. I played Mary this version where Britney Spears sings "It's Gonna Be Me" by NSYNC, and it sounds exactly like her. It's crazy. They could have done that. They could have done this with young Harrison Ford voice, no problem. But look,
The Guardian article said, for a fleeting moment this past 4th of July, while the intended audience of Indy's latest outing was presumably spending time with their families and friends at barbecues or in other social situations, an unoccupied fandom rallied by the star Jim Caviezel and claimed the day with 14 million gross.
I love Jim Caviezel all the more for this. Now, Person of Interest is my favorite television show of all time. I will rewatch it. I will start rewatching it again for the umpteenth time this weekend if it means that it pisses off somebody at Jezebel. Also, if you read the comments on the Jezebel article, I think the actual motives of the people who read it come to light. I don't think it's because people are like, oh, they're all secretly pedophiles. No, I think they just hate religion.
Yeah.
One person said, if these turds are concerned about trafficked and sexually abused kids, go visit any Christian fundamentalist compound or any Catholic church. Those places are ground zero for that shit. I don't know why you have to bring up every case of child abuse instead of like making a movie that focuses on one instance of it. Like,
It's crazy, dude. And it's
just because they hate you. Like, it's not about being pro or anti anything aside from anti right wing, anti Christian. And if those are the people who are supporting this movie, then they feel like they have to hate it, even if it doesn't make sense.
I
they
think
have
you're
this
right.
image of their head of like actual 4chan basement dwellers coming out in droves to watch Sound of Freedom.
Yep. It's insane. And it's sad too because in a lot of ways, like, look, if this was a movie about trafficking of upper class white women from Los Angeles, they'd be all for it, right?
That also happens,
Yes.
but that's not what this movie is about.
Exactly. The thing that we kept coming back to is like, look, you can make that movie. Why is this movie suddenly so controversial? And why do they have to pretend? Look, there are actual statistics out there that say, like, look, 1 to 2 million kids a year are sold into slavery. Now, one of the things that I thought was interesting is they point out they're like, well, most of that is like it's like work slavery. I'm like,
is that
in
better?
What? Like I was like, so they make your phones like against their will, so that's okay? What the hell are you trying to say with that?
Yeah, it's okay. It's only child labor slavery. Like, this is
Like,
part
not
is
a big
gross.
deal. Like, why are you freaking out about it?
The
people,
the
man.
journalist said this is tailored to go down easy. That's how propaganda works. Not all propaganda is evil.
Also,
Propaganda is a neutral term, and if you're spreading propaganda to raise awareness to a well-founded cultural problem,
Like,
I
yeah,
don't see how that's wrong.
This is my movie that I made to raise awareness about how horrible and surprisingly frequent child sex trafficking is. Oh, you're just a propagandist. Like, what?
also, like, it doesn't go down easy. It goes down the opposite of easy.
Yeah.
This is a very tough. This movie will be a very tough one for a lot of people.
if you found
to
it
watch.
easy to watch, I'm worried about your moral conscience.
Well, I mean,
right?
there-
And also, it doesn't tie up everything in a pretty bow. There are questions that you're left unanswered to wrestle with after you watch it. Like, in the movie, it says that Tim Ballard saved 120 victims of child trafficking, and you know that there are millions more, and that's made explicit in the movie. And you're left like wrestling with the question of like, what about those other kids? And even by the end of the movie, he doesn't find and convict the abuser of the girl that he saved.
Also hilarious how they frame it as a fantasy, as this is a alt-right conspiracy fantasy of the deepest, darkest recesses of the internet. The movie literally features actual footage of the real busts that happen, which is it's literally fake. What they're saying is just simply not true, but they're framing it as such, and it's just so intellectually dishonest that it's kind of hard. Like, even if we were to talk about, because they call into question like his Tim Ballard's company has been under investigation for this and that. I'm like, fine, make that an article that's separate about that. If you want to go deep dive into whether Operation Underground Railroad has misused funds or has exaggerated the breadth of their work, fine. what does that have to do with the movie?
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the movie. It's just there to make people who love Jezebel feel better about reading an article with 40 cats around them.
It ends saying, the polish only makes Sound of Freedom's attempt to illustrate how a voguish cultural anxiety can be ameliorated if people would just be courageous enough to pursue it or give money to those willing to pursue it. More insidious.
How is that more insidious?
They're saying it's a voguish cultural anxiety that children are being trafficked for labor or sex abuse or what have you, as if this is some kind of unfounded satanic moral panic that like talking about Marilyn Manson in the 90s.
As if it's the same thing, yeah. Also, what else would you expect from people who have cats and not kids and don't actually understand, probably are on extensive amounts of antidepressants and have a hard time connecting with people? I'm just,
but they'll like
it's a shot in the dark, but I'm just saying it's
their
possible.
criticisms for the movie saying like, we're the people who actually care about the kids. The right doesn't care about the kids. They're just propagandists. But what are you actually doing to help them?
Like you're not, and not only you're not actively doing things to help them yourself, but you seem hell-bent on stopping other people, or at least criticizing the people who are helping them.
It's a bunch of cope, and it's really disgusting. And it was good to see
backseat drivers who can never do shit in their lives.
It was good to see a bunch of people pushing back on Twitter. Like Joel Berry says, he pulls up the headline that says "Sound of Freedom: The QAnon adjacent thriller seducing America." He says it's official. Stopping child sex trafficking is QAnon now. That's apparently how far we've fallen in society.
Then
sign me up. I don't care.
Call me a Q-tard.
There you go. There you go. All right, let's go to super chat, shall we?
Okay. Marco said Lauren on PCC, thumbs up.
Yes.
Yay.
Thank you for your stamp of approval. Isaac Martinez said seeing Lauren Chen in PCC is awesome. Lauren, what's your favorite movie of all time?
So that's too hard.
This question is always like, you never know what to say.
Yeah, exactly. It depends on my mood, the season of my life as well. I my standard answer though is that Independence Day with Will Smith will always have a special part. I know it's like campy,
No,
but
it's amazing.
Did you watch it during
every
July
4th of
yeah,
July?
exactly. Roland
Every
Emmerich,
4th of
he
July.
delivered. It's so wholesome, and I don't know, like it just reminds me of my childhood. In addition to it being a fun movie, so I gotta say Independence Day if I had to choose. But if I'm, I guess in a more serious mood, Lord of the Rings: Two Towers is also good.
Okay.
Every
Good
4th
answers.
of July, I rewatch it.
Yeah.
It's a masterpiece. As far as I'm concerned,
good.
it's a masterpiece.
Disco Jensen said, after all the hype from episode 400, you guys turn around and get Lauren on. Something is going on with YouTube. Channel should be well over 100K.
I see a lot of comments recently that say that they feel like the channel is being...
I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist.
Oh, yeah. It's like we need to make like the board with the lines, the Always Sunny board, and be like, it's suppression, right?
It's probable that our channel has been suppressed.
There's, just being attached to Tim without the infrastructure built from his previous channels, which allowed his other channels to grow. That is possible, but it's like it also feels self-important to be like, and they're trying to suppress me.
But it's something they could do super easily, though. Like, even if you're using certain words in your title, it could just set something off and kind of doom your channel forever.
Even just mentioning QAnon.
Yeah, exactly.
We had, like I said, we cover stuff where we talk about this movie, which has the term child trafficking in it, which is just like, how do you, like, it
But
feels...
you're not allowed to talk about that because it's controversial.
It feels dishonest to not put it in the title, but at the same time, you want it to reach as many eyeballs as possible, but without it in the title, it doesn't reach as many eyeballs as possible. It's a catch-22.
We're using the tool as best we can.
Yes.
Tech said, hey, Lauren, I love your Mediaholic channel. Hi, Brett and Mary. Congrats for 400th episodes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cody Boudreau, I am not going to I'm not going to read that. Sorry.
That was from yesterday as well. Let's hold off on the rest and we'll come back.
And then he also said, no, they didn't recognize Britney Spears. They aren't from this country. The security guard, you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah. I
have a hard time believing you can bitch slap Britney Spears without realizing it's Britney Spears.
After the fact, it's just a lawsuit waiting to happen. All right. We'll come back to it. Mary, tell us what's going on with Pearl Davis and Piers Morgan and a feminist. It's like a walk into a bar joke. It's what it feels like. Pearl Davis, Piers Morgan, and a radical feminist walk into a bar.
So just Pearly Things, or Pearl Davis, or Hannah, or whatever you want to call her, recently went on Piers Morgan Uncensored opposite a feminist journalist. I think her name is Ava Santina. And they were arguing about women's rights and voting rights and equal pay. And it was really something to behold, because Pearl seems to be grating to every side of these issues.
It's kind of impressive, actually.
Yeah.
Like when you're the person who can actually piss everyone off.
But she's not even doing it by trolling, which is somehow like more annoying. You know, she's being fully genuine.
There is debate. I know some people think that she's just grifting, that she's just kind of trying to say whatever for clicks.
I don't know if I buy that. I don't think that she says the things she says because she's a freedom fighter or truth teller. I think she has some personal reasons why she like harps on these issues so hard.
Right.
But I do think she genuinely believes what she says.
We got a $20 there from Dave Gazuli.
He said, came in late, but is the whole Jezebel pushback perhaps due to the similarity in the progressive push to expose children to sexual themes? They can't praise one and condemn the other.
They absolutely can, because progressives of this nature believe that there's no truth but power, and they don't actually care about being hypocrites. It's Marxist 101.
So let's just watch some clips here.
Okay.
We can react.
Let's
to them
start
as we
with,
go.
I don't think men and women are equal until we do the full work. Go be a plumber, go be an electrician. Okay, here we go. Let's start it from scratch. Move it on screen here. Here we go. And we'll turn it up.
Also, by the way, it's such bad optics that the feminist that you're debating is hotter than you.
Yeah.
Just on its face, like you're already kind of
seems
losing
more
the debate.
feminine, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Is, a part of your message, I've researched you today, and hang on a minute.
Okay.
Your big push is that you care about men and you don't think that men are getting enough of a say. But
Well, I care about
hang
women
on,
too.
I haven't
Care
made the
about women
point
too,
yet. Because of feminism, okay? What I wonder is when you start
Thank you.
We'll pause.
Yeah,
We'll give
let's
the
wait.
feminist her due. We'll give the feminist her due.
Okay.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you,
Resume.
Carter. Thank you to Phil.
women shouldn't be allowed to vote. How is that helping young men? Because these young men have women in their lives. They have mothers, they have sisters, they have teachers. And they turn around, they don't know how to act around women because you're giving them license to be misogynistic.
I wouldn't call it misogynistic. I say be equal. So again,
I
men
think
do
that's what
all
most
of the
feminists are
Well,
saying.
then okay, I'd love for the feminists. Please apply for the oil rigs. Please go do the hard jobs in society.
Why
They're
don't you
open.
go and
They're
work
hiring because I don't equate for. I don't think men or women are equal until we do the
Right.
equal work. So no, listen. Go apply to be on the oil rigs. Go be a plumber. Go be an electrician. Go be on the front lines of the military, and then we should have equal rights. But until feminists are willing to do that, I don't believe we should have the freedom without the responsibility.
Okay, well, I don't think that I'm physically built for that. You might be, but I'm absolutely not. But you said you're reliable.
That was ruthless.
I'm not built to be on the front lines of the military.
Maybe you
Maybe
are.
you are.
Wow.
You said you were a volleyball player, and so you've got more strength than I do. I don't think
But
that
I don't
can
have more
do
strength.
those
I don't have
jobs.
more strength
But
than
I'm
the
not
average
going to take your
man.
right away to
I don't
do
have
it.
I don't have more strength than the average man. But again, it goes back to go be a plumber. You want to be equal, go be equal.
I love that argument. It's the argument that it always comes back to, right? I don't know. I feel like the lady is she's not wrong, but
Pearl or
they're both kind of right. They're both making their points that they would. It almost felt like they were having two different conversations.
Well,
Yeah,
are
I
we
feel
talking
like-
about how the world is or how the world should be? That's the big difference.
Yeah.
Well, in my opinion, Pearl is actually making a leftist argument. She's saying women aren't equal because we don't do the same jobs. It's like feminists also believe that equality means equal outcomes, which is not actually the conservative position. The conservative position is equal opportunity, but Pearl seems to be advocating for equal outcomes, which is not something that, is associated with right-wing political beliefs, at least.
But is Pearl's ideal world one where women are working the oil rigs, the sewage plants?
No, it's just a gotcha moment.
Yeah,
Or
right?
is it just a gotcha moment?
I think
Right.
she's just trying to pull a gotcha for the feminists because
Well, that's
she's
what I'm
saying
saying.
we shouldn't, as women, we shouldn't be able to vote unless we also have the responsibility that comes along with voting. I don't think I'm not for universal suffrage. I've
Right.
talked about this. I like service guaranteed citizenship is my current position. So I don't agree with Pearl, but for probably different reasons than the average person. She's just trying to. I think this is just a gotcha that she's not articulating very well.
Well, the idea of universal suffrage is a new one, and I mean, even universal suffrage amongst just the male population is kind of a radical idea that hasn't often been implemented in societies throughout human history.
Right.
I agree with that, but I don't know, like, this is just not the way to deliver that idea.
It feels like the argument that that Pearl's making is more the cultural argument that I always hear, where they're talking about, like, look, in the movies and television shows, they portray the women as being able to do all the exact same things that men can do.
Well, only in executive comfortable positions. They can be CEOs, but not working the oil rigs. Not being in the draft.
Point out that I just turned 37, and I grew up in an age where the
What's your birthday? Did you say publicly?
July 2nd. Just the other day. So,
mine's June 27th. So are you a Cancer?
I am.
Okay.
Yes. When I was growing up, it became a big thing that you taught women, like, look, women can be whatever they want. If they want to be CEOs, they can strive for that. When a woman will be president one day, and all of that stuff was great. What we didn't teach is how men were supposed to deal with that, with the changing of what gender roles actually meant in this country. And men were kind of just left adrift, wondering what the hell does this all mean when it went from first, you have the right to go and do whatever you want, no one should be stopping you, to now, whether they want to admit it or not, the feminists actively discourage the idea of becoming a mother or becoming a stay-at-home wife, because they believe that even though you don't understand it, they believe that you don't understand that you're submitting to the patriarchy without actually understanding. So they're calling us, the women, stupid as well as submissive, right? Not understanding that that's both insulting to the women who choose that life and demeaning to the men who may want to just help be part of raise a family. They want to be the provider for a woman and their children. And it feels like they're having different arguments.
Well, I don't think anyone of a conservative persuasion would argue with the fact that there have been adverse effects following women's suffrage. Right?
And there's a $20 one there related from Derp Devil.
He said, women cry about the glass ceiling but overlook the glass floors they tread on. All the men doing the thankless and dangerous things which actually keep society functioning. It shouldn't be a gotcha to say you have it easier.
So I'm going to push back here. I see from the red pill community a lot of the same, I guess, logic, quote unquote, that is being used by feminists in terms of like, oh, well, all men do this, women do this. When you start to think of like men versus women in those very broad terms, that's how you end up with the rad femmes who say like, oh, men tend to be violent more, therefore violence is a male patriarchy problem. I'm of the belief that men have individual and unique problems to themselves, as do women. I'm not about trying to say one gender has a blanket more easy than the other. I think that's not productive, and that's also not realistic.
Social media is the number one place where you see those, because it's great for clicks for people, is they can divide people very easily. I always equate it back to like, look, back in the day before social media, women complained to their girlfriends about men and men complained to the boys about women, and it was left at that, because you understood that even though you're bitching and complaining, it's just part of the experience as individuals. You are going to have complaints about the opposite gender. You mean it, sure, but it doesn't mean it's a rebuke of all that gender is. Now we've taken those discussions not just to the other gender, but we've monetized it in a way that allows them to make the content even more radical. There's always a grain of truth to it, but it's just being consumed in a way that's not actually beneficial to anyone.
Mm-hmm. Well, at least in part, women complaining is why all of these necessary infrastructures exist. I mean, men are obviously working very hard at all levels of society to make it as comfortable and safe as possible. And who are you protecting? The women and the children.
We gave you air conditioning.
Those infrastructures exist for a reason.
We don't want the air conditioning. That's the problem.
Remember that? That was a big thing.
Yeah.
They were talking about like, well, that air conditioning at work is patriarchal because men like it colder and women have to bring sweaters
Giving
to work.
me flashbacks to anti-SJW YouTube.
Yes, we're back in that.
The good old days.
In that realm right now. We got a $20 one there from Francisco Sanchez Jr.
He said, oh, okay, I gotta give some dollars to my fellow Cancers. Me, I'm June 25th.
Hey.
Happy belated birthday to us.
Dave Rubin, he's also, I think, like a day before or after, some like really close to that as well.
It's when I was home and like they mentioned it while I was out to eat with my family. I'm like, don't you do that. If I hear one note of happy birthday from some server, I am out of here. Thankfully, that didn't happen. It scared the crap out of me though. I'm like, I don't want it. No.
Do you
no
believe in astrology? This is kind of off topic, but
not really. No, not really. I don't think it's real or has any bearing, but at the same time, also the person like, oh, which Starbucks drink do they say is good for cancer? You know, like it's fun and I identify with it, but I like, oh, I'm a Cancer, therefore this is the one. Like, you know, on social media, they'll have like different outfits for the different star signs.
Yeah.
I look at those for what it says for Cancer, but I don't believe it has actual, it's not real. Like, it's
It's the meme. It says, "Mom, what time was I born?"
Yeah, it's
Run! Run! Get away from her.
Don't talk to her.
Don't talk to her.
Yeah.
It's only going to end badly, ladies
Honestly,
and gentlemen.
I think it is real to a larger extent than most people realize, but also it's not something that we should allow ourselves to investigate and also use as justifications for our bad behavior.
I feel like it's Myers-Briggs, but for like basic girls, kind of like
Yeah.
your personality type.
Well, women love like psychoanalyzing and like
Yeah.
analyzing social situations and personalities.
It's just vague.
That's why they are
It's
into
just,
it.
It's just vague, and it's like a party psychic, right? They give you vague information, and your brain fills in the blanks.
For most of it,
For
yeah.
most
the
of it,
commercialized
yes.
aspects.
But I get being interested in the personality types and everything like that. But if you are, then there are actual like psychologists who can give you better insights. Like watch the Jordan Peterson video about different personality types rather than the
I mean,
astrology.
even psychology is a pseudoscience to a large degree. Let's move on to another clip, though.
What was the thing that you had me do the one day, the one test? What was that thing called?
Oh, the temperaments.
Yes,
You're sanguine, choleric, phlegmatic, or melancholic, and you got melancholic.
Figures.
Right? Which I predicted.
Yes. Well, she knows me better than I know myself, apparently. All right. So this says, "Is feminism broken?" And this clip starts right here.
I don't understand though is when it gets spiteful, okay? Because you put down a few arguments
Halcyon, we're going to read it in a second, so just hold off for a minute.
that I think are perfectly, like, you know, they're kind of evangelical and they're Christian, but those are your right to say it. What I don't understand is when it kind of seeps into this sort of, you call women fat, you say that they shouldn't have
Are they
abortions,
fat?
you say that
Are
they
they
have
fat?
STDs. You know,
I mean, the question is, are they fat? Yes
Why-
or no?
why pass
The
that kind
average
of
American
judgment?
woman is 170 pounds. That's objectively overweight.
I mean, let's be honest. We now celebrate morbid obesity as some kind of body positive thing, and it is complete nonsense. So actually, on that point again, there's a bit of truth in
And this
that.
is the problem. This is the problem.
How have we come to celebrate morbid obesity as body positive? It's nonsense.
We're not talking about morbid obese. I was actually watching your podcast earlier, and you spoke to someone who was, I would say, probably a size 12, and you called her fat, obese, and a divorcee.
She was fat, obese, and a divorcee.
wasn't.
I mean, like, I don't know what to say. This is the thing, women, we don't want to live in reality. We don't want to say things that are true. Was she fat? Yes. Was she a divorcee? Yes. These things are just objective.
There is
facts.
any
Okay,
time
I'm
I
gonna
will.
have to object.
Go ahead.
Anytime someone mentions critical things about Pearl, she freaks out. That's all. Like
Right,
that's all
so
I'll say about that.
This feminist journalist retorted at her a couple of times saying, you know, for instance, you're not a virgin. Wouldn't that disqualify you from this idea you have of traditional marriage?
Yeah.
And she was like, well, I mean, I wish I was, but I can't go back. What do you want me to say? And similarly, the fat divorcee she was talking to, I don't know, could have said the same thing.
Exactly.
I can't go back and change the fact that I was divorced. What do you want me to say? Like, it's always like just one-sided with her. And also, I think Pearl is overweight, so I don't think she has any room to talk about that topic.
Well, you can still talk about it. You're a lot, like, you can still, like...
Okay, but like, live the values that you're preaching.
And Halcyon H has a $20 super chat that relates to the discussion.
He said, Pearl and Andrew Tate make sense, but have a few extreme views. My complaint with feminism is, are women better off now? If their goal was OF, single mothers, and multiple dads, and divorced and single, I guess they won.
You could look at the outcomes and say, like, look, are things better than they were 20, 30 years ago? No, but, you know, one of the facts of a liberal society is that if people are given the right to make their choices, those choices are going to be made, and all you can do, like you said, live your values.
Well, I mean, it's like women who wanted to make those choices already had those choices before feminism came along.
Right. And I think like but the answer is not, oh, you're either a feminist or you're red pill. That's a false dichotomy that I think a lot of people, like when we're talking about Pearl, it's like, oh, well, things are bad now, therefore this version of, I don't even know, it's not conservatism, it's not Christianity. I mean, we were kind of talking about it, like there are viral clips of Pearl talking about how high value man cheats, or a high value man cheats. If you are a man and you cheat, if you're anybody and you cheat, you're not a high value person. So the idea that the red pill community seems to place value solely on things like looks and materialism, that's not conservative. That's certainly not Christian.
It doesn't seem like Pearl values or even acknowledges the complementarity of the sexes. I mean, she's been preaching about this, like, if women disappeared tomorrow, men would keep society running and they would be just fine. And that's obviously not true.
Is that
men and
including
women
the childcare?
both
Like
need each other.
Yeah.
And we have different tasks that we are better suited to. And Christians especially understand the complementarity of the sexes. And Christians talk about the way that things should be, not the way things are. And I think the red pill ideology just talks about the way things are and how you succeed in the current paradigm when we're looking to change the paradigm.
Also with that's a really good distinction that you've made. And I also feel like when they talk about the way things are, they will be very, very committed to average statistics. It's like, oh, women are like whores because the average woman this, and it's like, okay, but that still leaves room for many, many women and communities of women to not do that.
What's your body count?
Yeah.
So that's what it ends
And
up being.
it seems like her message is one that doesn't have any room for redemption, which is obviously a Christian value.
Which is one of the things that, as somebody who's not religious, it has been the biggest thing to me. I've noticed that we've become a society that almost abhors the idea of redemption. You're not allowed, like, once you are something now, you're not allowed to be anything else. And as somebody who is in recovery, I believe heavily in redemption, in changing the course of where your life is going. So to see that, it's not just, it's anti-human in a lot of ways, and it leads you down the path to nihilism very, very quickly.
She has all of these criticisms for the state of modern women, which are true to a large extent, but doesn't offer... Sorry. Oh, wait.
Thank you, Ian. There's also a $20 super chat there from Ryle Kittenhouse. It's party time. What is Ryle?
So I was saying her message doesn't offer an off-ramp to the women that have maybe gone down a bad path. It's just nihilistic, like it's over for you if you've done X and Y and Z.
Or you're over this certain age,
or you're over a certain age. And which is also like not encouraging young women who have all the possibilities in the world open to them to get married, because it makes it seem like the worst possible option. Like I'm going to be worthless to my future husband at the time I hit 25 or 30 or 35 or whatever.
They do try to explain, I mean, like the more nuanced takes, they say like, look, in a marriage, it's a partnership, where back in the day it was that a woman offered you children and her best years, and you provide her safety and sanctuary and all of these things when she is no longer able to do that herself, right? But that gets lost in the message. Also, a lot of times when they're talking high-value men and high-value women, it's a conversation about people that is sold to people that are not part of that group, meaning that like the guys are usually talking about the men who are millionaires, who can have any woman they want, and they so that they have these young women that they run through on a regular basis. That is not the average guy's life experience, right?
Anyway, Ryle Kittenhouse said, "Finish The Wire. Seasons 1 through 3 are great. 4 or 5 less so. Many anticlimactic conclusions to characters and story arcs. Overall, good second monitor show."
All like those first 3 seasons of The Wire, that I sing the praises of this show all the time on here. Like if you want to see a show that does actual politics of a community, right? This is the show to check out. And also, if you want to see characters in shades of gray in a way that doesn't lean a specific direction without it being shoved down your throat, it is the show to check out.
Let's look at this last clip from the appearance.
All right. Is that the one that says women don't want to live in reality? We don't want to.
I think we just watched that one.
Is that
there was a third one?
Okay. Okay, here we go.
But, you know, we can't go back. I don't know what you want me to...
No, I think...
That's why I want divorce to be banned.
Yeah.
Can I finish that first? So I'm saying, you know, the people that believe in divorce, go be in long-term relationships. Leave marriage for the people that actually believe in, for better or for worse, for richer or for poor, in sickness and in health, till death do us part.
But doesn't the sanctity of marriage also rely on the woman being a virgin, so you wouldn't be able to get married?
What do you mean?
Well, you've spoken quite openly about how you're not a virgin, and so if you want to preserve that sanctity of marriage, then I just think that you're upholding standards that you don't actually live by.
You know, and that's a fair complaint. I wish I was. But, you know, we can't go back. I don't know what you want me to say.
No, but I just don't think it's fair that you get to be here and you get to be paid for your views, and you're telling other women that they shouldn't be allowed to.
I mean, she's not saying that they shouldn't be allowed to. She's saying that they shouldn't. I don't know if her being a hypocrite doesn't make the point she's making wrong in all contexts. I don't know if that's true.
Right, but I think just because something is true doesn't mean that you need to say it.
Yeah, time and place.
Right, a time and place and delivery matters. And like, Pearl just has this weird fixation that because something is true, you have to say it, or that's the reason that you should say it.
Right,
When,
and
like,
I also believe that the way, and there are people in the chat saying, oh, that's not what she meant by that, she actually means this, she actually means that, and I hear that a lot from Pearl's like supporters and subscribers. But here's the things, if she's needing to be corrected and defended by other people with words that are not her own, maybe she should just be more precise.
It's
when
her
she,
responsibility
it's
to
her
communicate exactly what she means.
Exactly, because I think what, a lot of Christians, the issue they have with Pearl is that when she talks about women, when she talks about men, she is basically reinforcing hookup culture by focusing on things that are superficial. And it's not that like even Christians shouldn't care about what someone looks like or how much money they make, but that should not be the most important thing when you're looking at a relationship. It just shouldn't. And the fact that she focuses so much on those things, leaving out other things entirely, that is enforcing this very shallow approach that people have to relationships.
There's also somebody points out, like, look, her long form content might go into more detail. That's not what we're talking about here. So I will point out that, like, I don't listen to.
It's just sound bites.
Like it's sound bites for stuff like
but
this.
Overall, like, I do understand why some people find Pearl's takes refreshing because we've come to
hang on,
expect that
to
you're not allowed
C2
to
gaming about the long form content. I've watched her long form debates and stuff, and she doesn't bring up that. So maybe her own long form content is.
The other thing is, you're right that delivery matters, because if you're looking to bring people into your worldview, if you want to help people see what you see, how you say it matters,
especially women.
Yeah, and a lot of, I think for everyone, right? Like,
but women are supposed to excel at communication, and if you're not taking into account how what you're saying is being received, you're not a good communicator.
Yeah. Yep. So
that's why your audience is 99% male, even though you're supposedly giving a message to women. And
by design,
what I was saying is that we've come to expect that criticizing women is off the table now, which is why Pearl's message is gaining popularity right now.
Right.
And we are in a culture where, like, look, she's on Piers Morgan, but she's not mainstream in the way that the people that are watching her would consider mainstream. The mainstream narrative is that you can't criticize women for any reason whatsoever, because if you
look at the Keke Palmer situation.
It makes you a misogynist who's a bad person. So, when you've been told you're only allowed to say one thing, when you've been told you're only allowed to do one thing, you'll look for any voice that pushes to the contrary, right?
You're going to spite the people that are trying to suppress that.
And I have, like, if I'm being completely honest, call me boring, but I have no opinion on this one way or another, because it doesn't really affect me outside of the fact that I think that these types of conversations and these types of discourses are usually a product being sold to a certain amount of people. One thing I've learned about being here is, like, whether you like it or not, you can believe everything you say in this room, and you should. You should only say things that you believe. You should only put forth a message that you truly actually have faith in. But at the end of the day, you're selling a product. Whether it's your point of view, whether it's your opinions on things, you're somebody who has a message, and that message is for sale, whether it's through your YouTube channel, whether it's through your articles you write for different outlets, whether you're doing speaking engagements. You're still, in a lot of ways, you're finding an audience, and you're pushing forward that message to that audience. And now that goes to what you said, which is that what you say and how you say it truly does matter. Being a good communicator matters, but always kind of take these things with a grain of salt, because it's still a product.
Right.
That's being sold to you. At least that's my personal opinion on that. That's come more true to me lately. So we should go to Super Chats because we are going to try to wrap up here by 5.
Jeremy the Haunted Mind, Isaac Martinez said, speaking of movies, heard of Criterion Collection?
We actually did a thing a couple weeks ago that the Criterion Collection censored. I don't remember what movie it was, but they censored some stuff in their collection because of racial insensitivity in the content.
Then what's the point of buying physical media at that point?
No, this was on streaming service.
Okay.
But yeah, you should be buying physical media for everything that you own, lest you find it 5 years later and it's completely different from what it was before.
Urashima Otaru said CCP will fine companies that produce maps or globes in China that fail to put the 9- line on maps and globes, even if they're historical reprints.
That's crazy. Like, imagine they go to your house and they like redraw the globe you have in your house because it doesn't have the right line on there.
EHF said, I put my white laundry in a black machine for DEI.
Not a bad idea.
Shane H. Wilder said, with the Barbie movie coming out, what are your opinions on Greta Gerwig doing 2 Narnia movies for Netflix?
It's going to be bad. It's going to be really bad.
Yeah, I was saying, like, C.S. Lewis fiction is something I would love to see done right in a film adaptation, but I know that it's not going to be, especially in this day and age, which is why I wanted everyone to keep their hands off of it. So
Not gonna happen.
yeah.
If it's IP,
I don't have high
it's gonna
hopes.
be abused.
Yeah.
Cody Boudreau, I don't want to read that. Sorry. Thomas said, I chug a can of beer for every crisis party. Damn.
Awesome, man. Maybe on Fridays it should be like whiskey. Like a beer during the week. Maybe.
On episode 400, that would get you in the hospital.
Yeah,
so.
30. Like that's a
Hope
lot.
you didn't do that yesterday.
Yes.
Disco Jensen said, extortion through the courts with assisted kidnapping and parental alienation is one of the major reasons marriage and birth rates are down. I don't think that's true, actually. A lot of people who are like chronically online and know a lot about these topics, which what you said is true. Like there are abuses in the court system. Normal men don't know about this stuff. Like they don't educate themselves on these things, and that is not the reason why people are not getting married as much these days.
And that's one of
categorically untrue.
Yeah, that's one of the issues that I have with some of these communities. They'll look at these statistics like, this is why this is like the average person is not aware of this.
Deciding not to get married, as if like people are deciding to not get married in the first place.
I don't know about that.
It's extremely hard to pair up.
The point of it is that the information is out there, whereas it wasn't before.
The information is out there, but like, how many people are actually looking into these things?
Not only looking into these things, but also basing personal life choices off of them.
That's not a thing.
I think it's an overly
the real reason is
point
far
of view,
more
but
sad and boring, which
Yeah.
is that like people who want marriage and commitment and family are not meeting each other.
I mean, I think it may play a role in it, but I think it's an overly simplistic explanation as to why these things. Why
I'm sure
birth
there are
rates
some
falling.
MGTOWs out there who decided to not get married because of those stats.
I
but
would say that those.
I wouldn't say that's contributing to any like macro scale societal change.
I bet you it plays a strong role in men not getting remarried if they go through a really awful divorce.
That's true.
Yeah, 100%.
Like a lot of these dudes who are in the MGTOW movement, they're there because they went through absolutely disgustingly awful experiences, either in divorce court or with custody battles with their kids, and they have every right to be angry. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody should extrapolate their own life experience onto what this individual's uniquely horrific situation was, but it doesn't make it less valid. I'm just saying that like people are finding these messages and it might scare some people off. Like, look, if you hear these stories about dudes who Eddie Murphy talked about this stuff in the 80s. Like, you go into a marriage with $300 million and you leave with half that with a woman who did not build that wealth with you. It's a cautionary tale for a lot of them. And I don't think that means that it's the only reason these things are happening, but it is true that divorce courts and child custody gear away from men. And in an increasingly lonely culture, it's just another excuse not to engage.
Right. And I think that's also one of the issues that I have with red pill culture is that obviously everybody should want to address structural inequalities and systemic inequalities like the court system unironically is and seriously is toward men. But when, there are men out there who are using it as a reason or excuse to not get married and have kids, you can't really do that and still be Christian and conservative. Like, I'm sorry, but if you're using your platform to advocate straight up not getting married and not having children, that is a stark departure from like what I think people on the right largely are trying to do, which is, I guess, in all of this craziness, still keep to principles of tradition and family.
Quite Blackpilled said 10 crisis parties and Papa Chen watched the Fast and Furious franchise.
I'm a very big Fast and the Furious franchise fan here, so I encourage everyone to go watch all of them multiple times.
No thanks.
Multiple times.
Evil Zombie Hamster said, listening to yesterday's episode, Boston Legal is a fantastic show. Denny and Alan shoot each other with paintballs, shrugs, and says, politics.
Dude. If you have not seen Boston, if you want to see a show,
my mom used to watch that when I was younger.
It's incredible. Like, if you especially in the polarized political climate that we live in right now, where Republicans and Democrats don't seem to be able to get along very much. In the show, the main characters, which are played by James Spader and William Shatner. Shatner is a kooky, old school Republican type who's kind of losing his mind, and Spader plays a very liberal lawyer, and they're best friends, and they argue constantly, and it's great. It's fantastic. Everyone should watch it. It might help you get along with your increasingly nutty liberal friends better. If you could see, if these guys can get along, then everyone should be able to get along.
Sir Ranko Productions said, thank you for sharing Luna once again.
Very happy to do so.
Disco Jensen said, what are the thoughts about Access Media attacking Song of Freedom and undermining the anti-trafficking message? My take is they are in on it. Well, I don't know if Jezebel is in on it, but...
I think they just hate religion.
Yeah.
I think they hate religion, and they don't like Jim Caviezel because some feminist teacher 20 years ago when they were getting their college degree told you he was a bad person because he made Passion of the Christ.
Latveria said, there's a canonical sequel for Passion of the Christ. Don't tell me the herring of hell doesn't sound metal AF.
Well, I hope that's how I hope that's how Mel Gibson pitched it to him. I hope he's like, this movie's gonna be metal as fuck. I said fun. I didn't. He's like, I hope that's how he pitched it to him. Because when he pitched it to him originally, he says, Jim, you want to come ruin your career with me? Like, I really hope that what happened was he called him again. He goes, you want to ruin your career again? Because Jim's like Mel Gibson's insulated. He's been making movies for so long. He never really, he lost out on work for a little bit because of the very, I'm going to have to give up my Lakers tickets rant that he did, right? But Jim lost more than Mel Gibson did.
Halcyon H said, a movie that should be made is the life story of Witold Pilecki. It's a travesty that no one knows who he is. Please look this hero up.
I will do that.
I haven't heard of him. Wrath said, it would be difficult to wokeify 40K. It is tuned for adult audiences, and with Cavill in the mix, I think I would stick to source material.
You could have female Astartes. You could totally wokeify it. They'll find a way.
They always find a way. One of the biggest complaints that I have for most of these things is they never decide who they want their audience to be, right?
Yeah.
They want to make it for the old people who these properties were originally geared for, but they also want to add a bunch of messaging that's there for kids, and you end up making nobody happy. Right? I still think the Barbie movie should have just been animated. I really do.
Well, they've already done animated
I know,
movies.
but
they are amazing.
But they could have done it with and gotten the same actresses. They could have modeled it after Margot Robbie, and gotten the same actors to voice it and done it with the same budgets and made it a big Barbie movie the same way they did Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
That they made Mario. I think they could have done that, and what we'll end up seeing is it'll matter whether it's feminist or not, because what matters nowadays for movies to succeed isn't how good the opening week box office is. Top Gun Maverick had a good but above average opening weekend. It did as well as it did because it had long legs all the way to Canada. It survived by having low drops week to week. And if Barbie ends up being feminist and the feedback is as such, it won't have the legs it needs to make all the money.
Yeah. Shane H. Wilder said, now I'm curious if they're going to cancel the CW since they're going to start airing The Chosen now that Lionsgate is producing it with Angel Videos.
It's so funny, too, because the CW is not even the CW anymore, right?
They went bankrupt,
It's like
right?
Nexstar or whatever, and they made that horrible Gotham Knights series, and they gave another season of Superman and Lois, but cut the budget by a bunch, so there's no main cast members except for the family. It's a bummer because, look, what I loved about the CW, you can complain about the political messaging all you want, but in an age where they like to put ugly people on screen in Hollywood, the CW wanted none of that. Yeah. The CW is like everybody is ridiculously over the top hot. There are no ugly people on CW shows. It wasn't allowed.
Yeah, no, the ugly actors go to the theater.
All the women look like supermodels. Where is this business park that these people work at where all the women look like they just walked off of a Victoria's Secret catalog? And that's the way it should be. As far as I'm concerned.
said, I can understand Lauren or anyone not wanting to see Sound of Freedom due to its content. I'd recommend watching Frequency. Take it away, Brett.
I think I'm going to watch Frequency again this weekend. Frequency is fantastic. The Count of Monte Cristo is fantastic. He was the star of the Thin Red Line. I completely forgot about that. That one completely went over the top of my head. Hadn't seen that movie in years. Go and have a Jim Caviezel marathon this weekend, everybody. Everyone should do it.
Disco Jensen said it's all about one thing, family.
Well, yes, Vin Diesel would agree. And and it's funny, a guy went through, watched all the movies and counted how many times. It's not actually said that much. It's said a lot. I would argue that it's mostly said by one person. It's one character who says it a lot, but it was 7 per movie or something like that. Or
I mean, that's still quite a bit.
But not for something that's been memed as hard as it has. Just saying.
Halcyon H said, Mary's being hypocritical. You're harsh on Pearl, but you said things to girls on whatever that wasn't very nice and shouldn't have probably said. I think that the hardest I went on whatever was just saying that having an OnlyFans is tacky. I don't know what else you're referring to, but
Mary's like, me? Mean? Must be talking about some other Mary.
I don't think that they were open to receiving any criticism whatsoever. But it definitely wasn't my goal to go on there just to tear them down. And I was trying to offer another, I don't know, like I offer an alternative that's positive to them, especially because I'm their age and I can relate to a lot of their struggles and frustrations with the male population. Nathan Koss said, you should make a new crisis party sound that includes the VP's definition of culture. Wise words.
Okay.
Shane H. Wilder said, I'm not reading that. Does Cody equal bad app? I don't know, but he needs to stop talking about his sister.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's not nice. It's creepy. It's a little sus.
Not something I want to get clipped saying.
It's just sus.
Viral Shorts said, great show, guys. I want to give a special shout out to Undead Chronic, the Griggas on the War Band.
Okay. And thank you, Viral Shorts.
Joseph said, I'm sure there's a reason why peeps are alone more today.
I think phones and the internet has a lot to do with why things are the way they are. Like, look, they do talk a lot about, like, back in the day, you competed for the women that lived in your town, and you had a chance, right? Even the nerdy guy with glasses had a chance. Dude could have a glow up, go to the gym, maybe get some contacts, and develop a little self-confidence. Now, the dating apps mean that you're competing not just with the people in your town, but people from all different socioeconomic platforms, statuses. It really is a different world that we live in today, and I would say that it's probably true that it's a much lonelier world. As much as we are more connected than we ever were, we're lonelier than we've ever been.
It's trite to say it, but it's true.
By the way, before we finish up, I am going to end the poll. I asked everybody, what do you think a Mark Zuckerberg super fan should be called?
I voted Mother Zuckers.
And the winner is, with 43%, Mother Zuckers, second only to Zuckerborgs, Zuckies, and Zuckinators. Don't zuck with him. I tell you, it's there's a lot of them there, but
zuck around and find out.
Yeah, exactly.
Quite Blackpilled said 10 nerd points for Lauren saying Astartes thing about 40K is the good guys are actual fascists. It will be surprising if they stick to the source.
There you go. Yeah. I don't think they will. I don't think most of the time. Look, they get too much of a charge out of not sticking to the source material because they're, one, narcissistic, and two, not creative. So they have to take somebody else's work and update it for modern audiences. And by modern audiences, they mean a reflection of who they are.
Yeah, the 5 radical leftist activists on Twitter, basically.
Exactly.
Those are modern audiences.
Well, they're going to be on Threads now. They're all going to go over to Threads. That's just going to happen. All right. Before we go, ladies and gentlemen, would you hit the like button on this video, and would you subscribe to this channel if you have not done so already? Thank you very much for that. Before we go, Lauren, would you let them know where they can find you?
Sure. So I am at the Lauren Chen on Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. Those are the places that I'm mostly on. I'm also on Facebook, Lauren Chen, and you can find my content on YouTube, Lauren Chen for political social stuff, Mediaholic for the pop culture entertainment stuff. And if you really like my content, I am also a TP USA contributor and Blaze TV host, so I post content on those channels as well.
Perfect. You're working a lot. Busy.
Let's go.
All right. Mary, where can they find you?
You can send me validation on Instagram at Mary Archived, or you can send me hate on Twitter. That is Mary Archived as well.
Perfect. Guys, if you'd like to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Brett Dasovic on both of those platforms. Pop Culture Crisis is here Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is noon Pacific. I want to give everyone a big thank you again for the 400th episode. It was a lot of fun, so thank you very much for that. If you'd like to listen to this podcast rather than watch it, we are on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, and Spotify. I actually got a big shock recently because I kept wanting us to go on Stitcher because I personally loved Stitcher as a podcast platform. And when I was going out of town, I opened it and they said they're going out of business. And it just made me really sad for about 10 seconds. So that is very sad. If you'd like to follow the show on social media, we are on Twitter at popculture_show, Facebook and TikTok at popculturecrisis, and on Instagram at popculturecrisispod. Mary, would you like to read that very last one before we go?
We've got one from Kai that says, Brett and Mary are my heroes.
Cute.
What else really needs to be said? Guys, we'll be back with another episode on Monday. We'll see you then.
Bye.
Later.
Bye.